Now, the reason why this is crazy is because when she was in bed with Diddy, she got a call, FaceTime call, from her now husband, Alex. And when this came out in court, everyone was like, holy shit. So Cudi and Cassie hung out for like the better part of a year, ended up becoming friends, and then they started dating by the end of 2011. So Cudi, he gets a phone call from his dog babysitter saying, hey, your car's on fire. It's on fire. So let's go into it, right? So far, guys, the government has had 16 witnesses, okay? 16 witnesses. They are Israel Florez, Daniel Phillip, Cassie, Special Agent Yasin Binda, Dawn Richard, Kerry Morgan, David James, Regina Ventura, Sheree Hayes, Gerard Gannon, Donnie Hughes, George Kaplan, Kid Cudi, Mylah Morales, Frederic Zemmour, and Joshua Croft. These are the 16 witnesses that have testified so far. I was there every single day, so I saw each of both their examination on direct and on cross. Direct examination was the prosecution asked them questions directly because they are a government witness, and then cross-examination is when the defense ask questions of the government witness to, you know, poke holes in it, damage their credibility, etc. So let's go ahead and go through each of these witnesses, and I'm going to summarize each of their testimony for you guys, all right? Both on cross and on direct. So the first witness was a guy named Israel Florez. Israel Florez, guys, is a security guard that worked at the Intercontinental Hotel when this happened right here. If you guys remember, this is the infamous hotel video from Intercontinental Hotel, okay? I'll play a portion of it for you guys right now. The famous CNN video that leaked a year ago before the trial.
You're going to show us the video, but first, give us some context on what we're about to see.
Yes, Jake, this is incredibly disturbing footage, so I do want to warn our viewers, as you did. But as you said, Cassie's lawsuit, which was filed in November of 2023 and then was quickly settled overnight, it did open the floodgates. But in that complaint...
Also, very important for you guys to know, as I was sitting in trial, this investigation was initiated on or about November 23rd, November 17th, 2023. Okay? And if you guys look, right, if we Google this real quick and we say date of Cassie lawsuit. So let's see here. She filed her lawsuit against Diddy on November 16, 2023, right? Diddy settled the next day within 24 hours. The investigation was initiated November 17th, 2023. So damn near the next day, they started the case. So pretty much after she settled, she went to the government more than likely. Very important detail.
Jake, she details an incident that she alleged happened in March of 2016 at a hotel in Los Angeles. She claimed in her lawsuit that she was...
How's the audio, by the way, guys, on the video? Is it good? Give me ones if the audio here is good. I got it at 210 cranked on the master volume, but you might not need it with this mixer. Who knows?
Physically assaulted by Diddy. Now our team in the LA Bureau, we have got our hands on that surveillance footage, and it appears to corroborate Cassie's claims identically. Really, Jake, the lawsuit lines up with exactly what we are seeing. So let's take a look. New surveillance footage obtained exclusively by CNN appears.
Now, this is HSI evidence, guys, so I know they were pissed when this leaked. This leaked over a year ago, chat. So this is a big deal. And this was a big part of the evidence that came into the case.
To corroborate some of the allegations of abuse against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs.
And we're going to talk about what was going on here in a second when this video happened.
The video, captured on multiple cameras, shows Combs wearing only a towel, assaulting his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, in a hallway at a Los Angeles hotel in March 2016. A lawsuit filed by Ventura in November last year and settled the next day referenced actions that seem to match those seen in this video. There is no audio. According to the complaint, Combs became extremely intoxicated and punched Miss Ventura in the face, giving her a black eye, which, according to the lawsuit, prompted Ventura to try and leave the hotel room. The surveillance video obtained by CNN begins as she enters the hallway. The complaint says, as she exited, Mr. Combs awoke and began screaming at Miss Ventura. He followed her into the hallway of the hotel while yelling at her. The complaint goes on to say he grabbed her and then took glass vases in the hallway and threw them at her. In the surveillance video, Combs can be seen grabbing Ventura and throwing her to the ground. As Ventura lies on the ground, Combs then kicks her twice and attempts to drag her on the floor back to the hotel room. Ventura is seen picking up a hotel phone. Combs seems to walk back to the hotel room, then returns and appears to shove her in a corner. Moments later, he can then be seen throwing an object in her direction.
That was a vase, I think.
According to Ventura's now settled lawsuit, the pair began dating several years after they met in
Okay, so now you guys got the video. So let's go back to the first witness. The first witness, again, like I said before, was Isr Florez, okay? He's now a LAPD officer, but back then in 2016, he was a security guard for the Intercontinental Hotel. And his testimony summarizes basically this. He got a call through the hotel that there was a woman that was in distress. He went upstairs to investigate, and he observed Diddy there with Cassie, and he had what he called devilish eyes when he saw him. And basically, they had clearly just been in an argument, and Cassie said that she wanted to leave. Then he said that then he said Diddy told her, "Oh, you're not gonna leave." So him clearly understanding that there's some kind of situation here, and he sees the broken vase. He tells Diddy, "Look, you broke the vase. You're gonna have to pay for that. But let's go ahead and de-escalate the situation and deal with this." Now, as you guys can see in the video, what does Diddy do? I'll show you guys this one more time, and we can watch this on a closer inspection. So when Diddy comes in here,
what we are seeing again. Hallway at a Los Angeles.
So what does he do? He runs up behind her, right? As he runs up behind her, you see she has a bag here.
Multiple cameras shows
she has her purse and a bag.
Combs wearing only
grabs her,
a
throws her
towel,
down.
assaulting his then girlfriend Cassie Ventura in a hallway at a Los Angeles hotel.
So he takes her bag and he takes her purse.
In March 2016, a lawsuit filed.
Now, what he did was he took that bag and that purse back to the hotel room. Okay, so when the security guy showed up that I'm telling you about, Isr Florez, Cassie was saying, "Look, I need to get my stuff." He put it back in the room. He was like, "Okay, cool. I'll help you leave. We'll deal with this." So he goes back with Diddy and Cassie to the room. As he opens the door, he says that he observed another male in there. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. And he was like sitting on the bed or on the couch or whatever it was that was in there. So he's basically there, kind of has the door wedged open so he can kind of see what's going on, but he's not necessarily all the way in there. Cassie gets her stuff and she leaves. Now, he writes an incident report about this, okay, for Intercontinental Hotel, but he left a couple of things out. What he left out was, he left out that he saw a man in the room, he left out that he saw a black eye on Cassie, and he left out what else? There was one other thing. Oh, he also left out that Diddy said for her to stay, okay? So three things. First, when he said, "Hey, she said, "I want to go," when he shows up. Diddy says, "You're not going anywhere," right? That's what he said on testimony. But in the report that he wrote, okay, which was on the same day of this incident, March 6, 2016, he did not put that. He put Diddy actually said, "Leave." Okay? So you can see the discrepancy. Now, Brian Steele, the defense attorney who did the Young Thug case, caught him on this. Okay? So on direct, these are the facts that he gave. Basically, he saw a black eye on Cassie. He went in there to help her get her stuff. As he helped her get her stuff, he took her downstairs. Some individual pulled up in a car and took her home, right? And he wrote a report on that day. Now, when Brian Steele comes in and cross-examines him, he says, "Hey, look, I got your report here that you wrote. Why did you put that she had a black eye in here? And why did you put that Diddy told her to leave? But in your testimony, you're saying that Diddy told her she can't leave," right? So right then and there,
Falcon punch.
Brian Steele is a fantastic lawyer. And for those of you that don't know who he is, let me show you guys real fast who he is, okay? This guy. This guy right here. This is the guy that was with Young Thug right here. That's him on the right, right? He was able to get Young Thug, I think, 15 years probation or whatever. But good lawyer. So when he cross-examined this guy, he attacked him on those points. In your report, you didn't say that she had a black eye. In your report, you didn't say that you saw a man in the room. And in your report, you didn't say that that Diddy said for her to stay. Rather, you said in your report that Diddy told her to leave, okay? And then when he was questioned about this stuff, he said, "Look, things were fluctuating. He changed. First he said she can't leave. Then he said for her to leave. So obviously I put that he told her to leave because that's what it ended on. He tried to basically, when the government came back and put him on redirect, he kind of explained some of these discrepancies. But it's important to put that Brian Steele kind of cornered him on this, and he said, "Hey, look, if you're the second in command for security at Intercontinental Hotel, why would you not document that one of your guests had a black eye? Isn't that a liability?" So he did a good job of cross-examining him and making him look a little crazy, but that's what happened, right? So that is the Israel Florez testimony. Give me ones in the chat if that makes sense. We're going to move on to the next person. I'm telling you, we're going to give the best fucking breakdown on this shit. Give me ones if that all makes sense. And if you got questions, guys, put them in now. Put your questions in now. I'm going to try to go through this as systematically as I can. But get your questions in now so I can, like, have them saved. And if you ask a question pertinent to the witness, I'll answer it. All right, perfect. Okay, let's get into the second witness. And it's very important, guys, that all 16 of these witnesses that I'm talking to you guys about are government witnesses. None of these are defense witnesses, okay? So Daniel Phillip is the second witness. This guy was an exotic dancer slash escort that ended up, you know, having sex with Cassie for a couple of years for Diddy. Now, you guys are probably saying, well, what the fuck, Myra? Whoa, hold on. What? Okay, let me explain. So this investigation or this case hinges around something called a freak-off. A freak-off, guys, is basically where Diddy takes Cassie, has her in a hotel room, and he has male escorts have sex with her as he watches in the back watching. In other words, he's a cuck. Many of the times he's masturbating, directing them, telling them what to do. He has the room set in a certain way with candles, lights, baby oils all over the place, Astroglide, etc. And the rooms were set up like this by his assistants, which we will talk about that testimony later on as well. But the point that you guys need to know for the purposes of what I'm going to talk about next with Daniel Phillips is Daniel Phillips was one of these escorts that was employed basically by Diddy and Cassie to have sex with her and perform sex acts as Diddy watched and gooned. Okay, so this is what this guy was. Now, you're probably wondering, well, Myron, how many of these guys were there? Well, roughly during the course of the trial, I think there was like 15 that they identified just in trial, but there were probably more. Okay, and this guy, Daniel Phillips, was one of them. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, if they had so many of these escorts, why did they bring this guy? Well, that's where we get into the story that he's going to tell. So basically, he gave a story where he was saying he basically got recruited this way. He was given a call by his company, his male stripper company, saying that a woman was requesting a stripper for a bachelorette party. So he shows up to a hotel in New York City. I think it was the Gramercy Hotel. He shows up there and a woman greets him at the door. This woman, later identified as Cassie, tells him, hey, look, you know, I don't have a bachelorette party. Rather, I kind of just want to have you, you know, we do some things and my husband watches. It's something that we like to do. Whatever. And next thing you know, he's having sex with her, hooking up with her, blah, blah, all this other stuff, right? And they start to develop almost like a relationship where Diddy and Cassie would call him whenever they wanted to do these freak-offs. And these freak-offs would last somewhere between 24 hours, guys, all the way up to 4 days. And multiple of these escorts would be utilized to do this, okay? Now, when it comes to this guy, Phillips, why they put him on the stand is because he observed an act of violence. So basically, when they're having these freak-offs, there's sessions within the freak-offs. Okay, I know. This is fucking crazy. I know. But basically, there'd be sessions in these freak-offs. And the way it would work is the escort would have sex with Cassie. After he has sex with Cassie and he finishes, Cassie and Diddy would go into another room. And as they go in the other room, the escort sits there just kind of waiting until he's directed to do another session or he can leave. So he would sit there. And on one of these freak-off sessions, after it was completed, he's sitting there on the couch, just chilling, you know, hanging out, waiting until they want him to do another session. And Cassie comes out the room. As she comes out the room, she goes to her computer and she's working on some things. Diddy's in the room, right? This is, I think, at her apartment or one of the hotels. As he's sitting there chilling, Cassie's on the computer. Diddy calls to Cassie, hey, come over here. Cassie says, okay, give me 1 second. My private information's on the screen, right? Maybe she was buying something, checking out, who knows? This is roughly like 10 years ago, by the way, like 2013-ish, 2014-ish, whatever. So Diddy, out of a fit of rage, starts yelling, and next thing you know, he takes a alcohol bottle and he tosses at Cassie. It misses her, but he smashes on the wall. Then he observes Diddy walk towards her, grab her, and drag her by her hair into the room. As he drags her into the room, he didn't see, but he heard smacking noises, okay? So obviously he can infer that Diddy was potentially assaulting her, right? And what he said was after he witnessed this assault, or in this case heard it, he had a very difficult time getting erections whenever he hung out with Cassie, and he liked her, right? He wanted to date her. He started to develop feelings for her, and he couldn't get hard when they would do the freak-offs from that point forward. He got really hard for him to do it. So Diddy and Cassie basically stopped using him. But he was a witness to this violence. Okay, that's why they brought him in. Okay, give me ones in the chat if that makes sense. Then we're going to go on to the next witness, who's going to be Cassie. Cassie was government witness 3. Okay. All right, let's move into Cassie. So Cassie, as you guys know, was a government star witness. And a couple of things I want to note here before we talk about Cassie, okay? So, two things. Number one, Diddy originally requested a speedy trial. And the reason why he requested a speedy trial, chat, is because he was not getting bond. Normally, when defendants don't get bond, they have to sit in jail. And when they have to sit in jail, that sucks because it's like they got to sit there the whole time as they wait for their trial to happen. So he said, you know what? If I'm going to be sitting in jail and they're not going to give me a bond, I want a speedy trial. Kind of a mistake, though, because what his defense team later learned was that Cassie was actually pregnant. And they tried to push the trial back after finding this out, but the judge said, you know what, no, we're just going to run it because we've already kind of got things going on. We've already pushed for a speedy trial, so let's make it happen. So the defense did not want to have Cassie come in while she was pregnant. And the reason why is because they didn't want the jury to kind of look at that as like she's a victim automatically. Does that make sense? So when Cassie would come in on the first day that she came in, she was damn near gonna explode. She's like 7-8 months pregnant, chat. Okay? And the reason why the government put her up front as one of the first witnesses is because of her being pregnant, right? And they made a big point about it to basically give her a couple of days of testimony and get her out. Not this Friday, but the Friday prior. So she started testifying around Tuesday. They wanted her out of there by Friday. So she ends up, taking a stand, waddling in or whatever. And another thing that I want to mention to you guys as well that's very important is one of the things that the lawyers would argue about, right? And they would do this often before the jury was seated, right? So when you come into the courtroom and you're sitting there, they would typically bring the jury in right around 9:30. Prior to the jury coming in, the lawyers, both sides are arguing. One of the main things that they argued, especially the prosecution, was something called Rule 412, okay? And now that I'm on a computer, finally, I could talk to you guys about this crap because I wasn't able to talk about it as effectively. So Rule 412, guys, right, is sex offense cases, the victim, okay? Prohibited use of the following evidence is not admissible in a civil or criminal proceeding involving alleged sexual misconduct. Evidence offered to prove that a victim engaged in other sexual behavior or evidence offered to prove the victim's sexual predisposition. Okay. So basically, you can't bring in evidence that's going to make her look like a whore, okay? Because what ends up happening is you got these rape shield laws that prohibit the defense from attacking the woman from the perspective of her promiscuity, etc. So the defense had to kind of walk a very thin line where they had to show that she was predisposed to some of this behavior, that it was consensual, but they also had to do it in a way where the prosecution wouldn't, constantly interject and say, objection, objection, 412, objection, objection, 412. And there's other statutes as well that protect victims of rape shield. But basically, this was one of the biggest obstacles that the defense had to deal with when cross-examining Cassie, okay? So her pregnancy, 412, and then getting her off the stand quickly were three of the things that the defense and the prosecution argued about every single fucking day before she testified. Okay? Now, let's get into her testimony. So basically, she met him in the early 2000s, right? And she got signed to Bad Boy. She released this song right here, okay, which I'll play a little bit of it for you guys so you guys know what I'm talking about here. All right? Because I really want to bring you guys in and know who this woman is, Cassie. This is like one of her main hits right here. You guys are going to, as soon as you hear it, you're going to remember this. I'm bringing a blast to the past for you ninjas. You guys remember that? So this was this was released in like 2006, Me and You, right? Hold on. Okay, now that you guys know who I'm talking about in the song, so she gets signed to Bad Boy right around 2006, 2005, right? On her 21st birthday, her and Diddy had the first hookup, okay? They were in Vegas, they were there partying, and Diddy kissed her at her hotel, or he kissed her at his or her hotel in Vegas. That's the first time that they had some type of romance. After they kissed each other, Cassie started secretly meeting up with him at hotels all across New York City, right? Now, the reason why she was doing this is because she was dating a guy named Ryan Leslie at the time. Who's Ryan Leslie? This dude right here. Okay? She was seeing Ryan Leslie at the time. And they were dating for 3 years, okay? And it was actually Ryan Leslie that introduced her to Diddy. So after this Vegas hookup and her seeing Diddy all the time, they had not had sex yet. They had went down on each other and stuff like that, but apparently she tells one story where, you know, Diddy went down on her, she didn't go down on him, and it pissed him off or whatever. So he keeps pushing, right? And eventually he convinces her to come down to Miami and hang out with him, right? And what they did was they had this they organized a club showing or a club event that she would go to where she would perform, and there was flyers passed out. I think this was done in a perspective to kind of like shield why Cassie was really going to Miami from Ryan, that she had this performance. But long story short is Diddy gets a boat and they have sex on the boat, right? And from that point forward, they started dating. Now, the prosecution showed an enormous amount of text messages and a defense between Cassie and Diddy where they were, you know, lovey-dovey and all this other stuff in, 2007 all the way up until 2017, I think, is when they stopped dating, right? And then their last interaction was roughly 2018. So let's go through this. So they show these text messages and everything else like that, and Cassie basically says that Diddy introduced her to freak-offs early in their relationship within the first year or so, right? And I explained to you guys earlier what a freak-off is. And what quickly happened was these freak-offs started to become an every week thing, and they would last days at a time. So what ended up happening was Diddy put her career on a back seat because she was signed a bad boy at the time, and she only released one album. And she was focusing more on doing freak-offs and making him happy. When the prosecution asked her, why did you do all these freak-offs? She said she did it because she wanted to make him happy, and she loved him and all this other stuff, right? So they're doing these freak-offs, right? Every week he's requesting it. And the way it would go is he'd tell her, hey, let's do a freak-off on XYZ day. So she would go ahead and she'd go to the sex store. She'd get lingerie. She'd buy certain heels because he liked her to dress a certain way and look a certain way. She would get a wig, maybe masquerade masks, right? She would get, the baby oil, the lube, the lighting, all this crap. Reserve the hotel, whether it be her or his assistants. And, she would basically do these freak-offs. She said she was doing them almost once a week for years, and they would last anywhere between 24 hours all the way up until 4 days. So she said that her ability to make music was significantly hindered during this period of time. And then she also said they would use drugs as they were doing these freak-offs. Molly, GHB, ecstasy, MDMA, cocaine, oxycodone, they were using opiates, all types of drugs, right? So we also got to get an insight into Diddy and Cassie's drug abuse, okay? They were partying all the time, they were doing drugs, and they were drinking all the time, right? So a lot of this stuff that was happening, these freak-offs, kind of occurred in a hazy place for both of them, okay? So she went into that, and she talked about all the times that Diddy assaulted her, okay? One of the most important times that they talked about Diddy assaulting her was this situation at the hotel that I told you guys about on March 6th, 2016. And she talked about how when she was there, right? Because now we all saw the video, but none of us really knew what transpired prior. So this is what she said, basically. They were conducting a freak-off, and there was one of their trusted escorts there, a guy named Jules. They were doing the freak-off, and during the course of the freak-off, Diddy saw something on her phone that pissed him off, and he punched her, or he hit her, basically. After he hit her, Cassie said, fuck this, I'm leaving. She took her stuff and she ran out, and that's when we saw what we saw. And after that, he actually went to her house after this happened, and Cassie went to her apartment. This happened in L.A. So after this happened, she went up and met up with her friend, Kerry Morgan, who we're going to talk about Kerry Morgan as well later on as well. That's her best friend, right? So she talked about this event. She talked about other events where he beat her up. She also talked about how she was hooking up with Kid Cudi, right? And we're going to talk about the Kid Cudi testimony here today as well. He went on the stand yesterday. She talked about how she was dating Kid Cudi and how Kid Cudi got his car bombed pretty much for being with her, and that Diddy more than likely had a stake in it, right? And then she also talked about a time how she talked to Diddy after the allegations of her being with Kid Cudi, and he, basically gave her a fucking Spartan kick, right?
This is Sparta!
And he fucking kicked her in the ass, and she got a bruise. And her mom, and this was in December of 2011, and when she got this bruise, her mom documented it, which we're going to talk about that also when I talk about Cassie Ventura's mom's testimony. You guys see how everything is starting to weave together here? So She mentioned all these instances of violence. Then, and this is very important, she talked about how she was raped by Diddy in August of 2018. So by August 2018, they had been going back and forth. They had been broken up, stayed together, broken up, stayed together, broken up, get back together, blah, blah, blah. They had done this for many years, right? And after she had broken up with Diddy on this last time, she ended up starting to date her current husband, this guy named Alex, who was a personal trainer of hers that I think Diddy actually employed for her. So she's seeing this guy, Alex, but Diddy reaches back out to her, and they have dinner at a Italian restaurant in Malibu, California. After they have this dinner, Diddy takes her home, and she claims, according to her, that Diddy came inside the house with her, and then he raped her in her living room, right? So this is kind of what the story was with her. Now, when defense comes in, and again, guys, a big part of Cassie's testimony was based upon text messages and images of her getting hit, right? She also told another story of where she had a gash in her eye, and she showed pictures of that as well. Now, all of these pictures of her getting beat up were shown to the jury and to us, right? Bruises, cuts, marks, scrapes, all this stuff. Her wearing glasses to cover up her injuries, busted lips. We saw all the pictures, okay? So there's no doubt at all that Diddy absolutely did beat her. Now, I do also want to say that Cassie initiated some of the attacks. And one attack in particular in 2009, September, if I'm not mistaken, Diddy and her were at a club. She was talking to this guy, and Diddy didn't like that, and he called her a whore. So when they got outside, Cassie, embarrassed, literally hits him with the fucking
Cold punch.
And this enraged Diddy. And when they got into their SUV, he started beating on her and stomping on her. Okay, and she ended up getting a bunch of scrapes and bruises, and she had to stay at a hotel for a couple of days because of that. And that's another theme of Cassie's testimony, where she would get hit by Diddy, and what Diddy would do is he would hire like maybe a plastic surgeon or a doctor to look at her after the beating, and then he'd make sure that his security put her in a hotel somewhere for a few days so no one ever saw her marked up face. Or if she did go outside, she'd put on makeup or anything else like that, right? So these are some of the elements of Cassie's testimony. Now, on cross-examination, what the defense focused on was the same text messages, but showing the other side of them. How she said that she loved the freak-offs, how she showed that, hey, I want you to put your big D in front of on me. I'm so ready for another freak-off or whatever. So it's interesting because both the defense and the prosecution had the same set of text messages, but both parties were interpreting it differently to make their arguments. So the defense was making the argument of, look, this was consensual sex, and Cassie needs to take a little bit of accountability here to her sexual behavior, like our client Sean Combs has, right? Versus the prosecution was arguing that this was all manipulation by Diddy and coercion, and he utilized his power and his status to be able to basically have this leverage over Cassie because he controlled her through her career, controlled her through finances, controlled her through the age gap, all this other stuff. So when the defense started cross-examining Cassie, a couple of bombshells got dropped. One of the biggest bombshells was the rape that I told you guys about before in August. So what the defense focused on when they talked about the rape that occurred in August was they said, look, you make this allegation that Diddy, raped you in August of 2018. But what about this? And they showed text message conversations, right, between Cassie and Diddy. And I want to show you guys one of the texts that she sent to Diddy right after or the day after the alleged rape. And I have it written down here verbatim. Can you guys see that? Okay, let me focus in on it for you guys because I really do want you guys to see this. Can you guys see that? Okay, it's because it's purple. But what it says here, hit me when you can, heart emoji. Okay? She sent that to Diddy. This is like the day after this alleged rape. And then Diddy responds, okay, I'm in an investor conference. Then she responds, I'm calling. It went to voicemail. Then she says, thank you. And then Diddy says, I know I look bad to you. I could tell you weren't you weren't turned on. I fell off. I'll get my shit together. Right? Referring to them having sex the day before. So basically, after this conversation, they continued to maintain contact. And they ended up seeing each other at a mutual friend's birthday party. And then after that, they ended up having consensual sex on September 27th, 2018. So she gets assaulted on or about August 20th. They continue to have contact, and then she has consensual sex with him on September 27th. Now, the reason why this is crazy, guys, is because when she was in bed with Diddy, she got a call, FaceTime call, from her now husband, Alex. And when this fucking came out in court, everyone was like, holy shit. Right? And again, this is the defense. They have to dance around this because of the Rule 412 that I explained to you guys before. So what they were able to establish was like, okay, did he really grape you if you spend a significant amount of time talking to him and then meeting with him on 2 separate occasions after the alleged assault, right? So I think the defense did a really good job there of kind of debunking the rape claim, right, that she had made against him. So let's see here. And there was a bunch of other stuff that went down. Oh, another bombshell that they dropped when they were cross-examining Cassie was that she settled. Well, she sent a demand to the Intercontinental Hotel, and she made $10 million, chat, okay? So she made a whole bunch of money with this whole situation. So she settled with Diddy. She sued him, I think, for $33 million. She settled for $20 million. Then she ended up sending a demand to the Intercontinental Hotel, which is not a lawsuit, by the way, because the defense asked her, hey, are you currently in any other litigation during this case? And she said no. And it said, okay, well, is it not true that you settled on a demand with Intercontinental Hotel? And she was like, yes, because she can't lie. She's under oath. And it said, and what was the amount that you settled for? Obviously, the government's objecting, blah, 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 right? And she's like, 10 million. So basically, she made 30 million on this situation, right? With the whole Diddy stuff. So she sues him in 2023. Then she gets another 10 million. And guys, what's craziest, right, is that she got this 10 million right around the time that this trial was going on. So for the defense to drop that fucking bombshell on her, right, during cross-examination, and she had just got the fucking money, tells me that they had an investigator really looking into this situation, and they were able to dig that up, that she made 10 million on the Intercontinental Hotel. Absolutely crazy. So, that is a summary of the Cassie testimony. She spent the most time on the stand by far, which is why I'm like, obviously her summary is going to take in the most, but that's basically what it is. Okay? So the prosecution focused more on the times that she was beat, and they showed a lot of the scarring and the injuries, right? And then the defense focused more on the loving messages that she sent to Diddy and debunking a rape accusation, and then the money that she received from, doing this, from participating in this whole situation. So give me ones in the chat if that all makes sense, guys. We've covered three witnesses so far, and then these next witnesses aren't as long, so I'll be able to kind of fly through these. And we got about 3,000 you guys in here watching, man. So do me a favor, guys. Like the video for me. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Giving you guys the best breakdown on this thing by far. I'm going witness by fucking witness. And I'm going to go ahead and put this into a video for you guys and make it a, a clip. All right, perfect. Let's keep cooking, chat. Let's keep cooking, all right? So the next witness was Special Agent Yasin Binda, female. Okay, she had been on the job for about 5 years. Newer agent out of HSI New York. The reason why they brought her in as a witness, guys, is because after Diddy was arrested in November of 2014, if you guys remember, I think it was like I said 2014, 2024. If I'm not mistaken, he was arrested on or about November 17th or 19th or something like that of 2024. He was arrested in November. That's what matters. The day that he was arrested in November in 2024, they ran a search warrant at his hotel, okay? And basically, this agent, Vinda, she was the one that coordinated the search at the house. She was the lead case agent on the house. And I want to make this clear for you guys. So this all makes sense. When it comes to federal investigations, right, there's something called the case agent. The case agent is the guy that has the overall case. He's the one that I told you guys before that was sitting at the table, that's giving the AUSAs whatever they need. He's probably the guy that writes out most of the search warrants, writes all the reports, controls the informants, dictates where the witnesses are, and all this other stuff. He's coordinating everything. He's the case agent, right? As a case agent, especially on a big investigation, you essentially become a manager. You're managing the case and resources allotted to you. So he's a case agent, but what he did was when they did the search on Diddy's residence, he delegated that to Vinda. And Vinda is in the human trafficking group of New York. And this guy that is running the case, Sean Quinn, he's also in the human trafficking group in New York. And he delegated her to run the search warrant at his house because he was more than likely on the arrest team with Diddy to try to get a statement from him, and she was running the search, right? So now that you guys understand, let's get into what her role was. So her job was to oversee the search warrant and collect all the evidence. So as agents go in, right, and she described all of this in her testimony, but I'm summarizing it for you guys. They described how search warrants work. Basically, they secure the room. They go in, they do their tactical thing, make sure each room is clear. After that, they begin to search, and they assign 2 agents to every room, and then they label each room as A, B, C, D, etc. So if any evidence is found, let's say you find baby oil in room C, the bathroom, they're going to go ahead and say 2 bottles of baby oil from room C, and they're going to document this in their reports and also in the what's called the 6051, which is a chain of custody form that HSI uses, or DHS, all of them use. So when they went to the house, they seized 3 main things. Or when they went to, the apartment, they seized 3 main things. They seized a bunch of baby oil, $9,000 in cash, and they seized some lights and some ketamine that they found, pink ketamine. I think there might have been some other stuff that they encountered when they were there. But for the purposes of me summarizing this for you guys, that's what they took. Now, pretty much her testimony was smooth. The government has her on direct, and then the defense comes in on redirect. And the only place where Vinda fucked up is the defense started asking her, well, you found $9,000 in there. Why did you take the $9,000? And she was like, well, we took it. We seized it because, it could be evidence of a crime. And they're like, okay, what violation? And she said, oh, bulk cash smuggling. Now, that was a big fucking mistake for her as a rookie. Because bulk cash smuggling typically occurs, when people are trying to smuggle money out or they're involved in nefarious activity where they're doing it for profit, maybe a drug trafficker, a scammer, something like that. But Diddy is a legitimate billionaire. He has legitimate businesses. He's a music artist. He sells liquor, etc. His money is legitimate. So by her seizing the money and saying it could have been for criminal activity, I was kind of cringing in the courthouse because I was like, oh my God, this girl's a fucking newbie. And then they kind of beat her up on that. Like, hey, why'd you seize that money? Blah, blah, blah. What's the violation? And the government had to object multiple times to kind of stop that line of questioning. And eventually they were able to, sort it out or whatever. But had she not taken that money, she would have been on and off the stand in 20 minutes, right? Because when they bring on agents a lot of times, it's very matter of fact when they bring you on. Like you're coming in, you're testifying, and I can tell you guys this from my experience because I was an agent for many years. You're just testifying to the facts, what you found during your search, procedure, how things happen, your background, your training experience, and you pretty much get off the stand. But the fact that she took that money from someone who's a fucking billionaire and clearly is not doing these crimes for profit like other criminals do, it opened the wedge for the defense to kind of attack her, and she could have avoided that by not taking the money. If I was the search agent, like let's say if I was the agent on scene that was running that search warrant and I found that $9,000, what I would have done, or what she should have done, was she should have obviously seized it like she did with the 6051 seize it, document it, etc. Then after the arrest team arrested Diddy, because keep in mind, guys, they're doing the search warrant as Diddy's getting arrested. This is all happening simultaneously. Diddy's getting arrested, and then bam, they're hitting his front door at the hotel. All this happening at the same time. So what I would do is, as I encounter the money, I would obviously seize it, put it in the bag, whatever, right, seal it up, etc. Then once Diddy got arrested and gets given to the marshals, because when you're arrested federally, you always get turned over to the marshals, right? Whether you're arrested by FBI, DEA, whatever. Then I would meet him at the marshals jail, and I'd say, look, we're going to go ahead and give you back this money, okay? And I would have given him what's called the 6051R. And the 6051R, guys, is a 6051 return. And I would have had him sign it, count the money in front of him with another agent as my witness, count in front of him, okay, here's your money, boom, stays with you here at the marshals, I'm out. And that's what I would have done to cover my tracks and ensure, because the evidence that they have to justify seizing the money isn't strong. And then the fact that he's a self-made billionaire, it's going to be very difficult for the government to prove that that's illicit proceeds. Does that make sense, chat? So that is what Agent Vinda did. She ran the search there. She wasn't on the stand long. Next witness, Dawn Richard. Now, Dawn Richard, guys, is this woman right here. And she is witness number 5. Hold on, I'm going to pull her up for you guys so you guys have an image to the face. Here we go. Or Dawn Richard, whatever it's called. She pronounces it Richard. Let's start right here. Okay, she was a member of Diddy Dirty Money, and she was also a member of Danny DeCane back in the day. Which Danny DeCane, guys, was found through a old MTV show called Making a Band, and they had another one kind of similar to that where they were looking for singers. Anyway, all stuff aside, basically, with her testimony, guys. So her big piece of testimony was she said back in roughly 2009, if I'm not mistaken, she was at the house, Diddy's house in L.A. And what she said was, she observed Diddy on testimony come downstairs, yell at Cassie, say, "You useless fucking bitch," and yell expletives at her and say, "Where the fuck are my eggs?" Right? And Cassie was in the kitchen cooling some eggs for Diddy. So he comes down yelling about these eggs. And according to her on testimony, he picked up a skillet and he hit her with the skillet. Okay? He hit her with the skillet, I think is what she testified to. And after she got hit, she kind of came down in a fetal position. And he was kicking her and punching her, and then he dragged her upstairs to where they heard windows clashing and arguing and yelling, right? That's her testimony. Then the following day, what happened was Diddy brought her and her partner in because they had the music group Diddy Dirty Money, right? Let me see here. This is the group, right? You can see here these three. Richard, basically clockwise, Richard, Harper, and Combs performing in December 2010, right? So, and this is her right here, and then here's Harper, the other girl, and then Diddy. And it was basically like an electro soul band that they had. And that's what they were working on. So the next day after this happens, Diddy brings them to the studio at his house in L.A., closes the door behind him. He says, "Look, guys, what you guys observed yesterday between me and Cassie, that's our relationship, that's passion, let's make sure this never gets out. I'm going to take y'all to the top. We don't need controversy. If people come forward and talk about stuff like this, people can go missing, right?" And then he gives them flowers. So basically it makes this like very dry threat, right, to Dawn and the other girl. And she looked at this as like a threat kind of. Now, that was the main thing that the main piece of evidence that was important for the prosecution. Now, on cross-examination, and this is crazy because the person that cross-examined this girl was this black lawyer. Let me see if I can find her, bro. She did a really fucking good job. Okay, Nicole Westmoreland, right? Let me see here. Okay, here she is. So this woman right here, right? This woman right here, cross-examined Dawn Richard, right? Let's put both of them on the screen so you guys can really get a picture here of what the fuck I'm talking about. So, like I said before, so here's Dawn, right, from Danny Kane. And then this was the attorney that cross-examined her. And it was hilarious because when she came in for cross-examination, she had her hair tied back and she was ready to cook, right? And I got to give credit to her. She did a really good job. And I'll explain why she did a good job on cross. So basically, and also Diddy's team, just so you guys, I want to let you guys know, Diddy's team, whenever there was a female witness, a female attorney would cross-examine them. That's also something I noticed when I was in the trial. A female attorney would always cross-examine the females, and then typically a male attorney would cross-examine the men. And Diddy had a team of like 7, 8 lawyers. So here you can see her right here, Nicole Westmoreland and Brian Steele, right, after the trial. So on cross-examination, right, she says, okay, well, you're saying on testimony that Diddy hit her with a skillet. But when I looked at your complaint and I looked at other reports and other statements that you gave to the government, you said that you didn't see him hit her with a skillet. Rather, you saw or heard the skillet hit the wall, and then you saw Diddy grab her and bring her upstairs, right? And basically, let me go ahead and make sure, because I really want to make sure I get this for you guys accurately, because this was a very important cross-examination here when they did this, because she gave multiple different stories as to what happened with the skillet, right? So first, it was she threw eggs. The first story that she gave, and I'm telling you guys this, she gave multiple stories to the government and her complaint. That's why Nicole Westmoreland, this lawyer here, was basically attacking her on this. So one of the stories was throw eggs and put the pan down. Second story was he hit her with the pan. Third story is he was attempting to hit her with the pan. And the fourth one was the pan hit the wall and he threw it at her. Okay? So there isn't really a clear story here with how this pan hit Cassie, right? So one of them, pan hits the wall. One of them, he tried to hit her and miss. Another one of them, he hit her. And then another one is like he tried to hit her, missed, and then he put the pan down and threw eggs at her or something like that. So there's multiple different stories on how this happened. Then another thing that she went after her for was saying like, look, you're claiming that you're so scared of Diddy because during her testimony, she said the reason why she never came forward or said anything is because she was scared of Diddy. And this attorney said, okay, well, if you're so scared of Diddy, why did you reach out to him to work with him multiple times after the fact, right? Why did you reach out to him? And for that, she was saying, oh, well, you know, she gave some kind of excuse about how she wanted to just get on a panel for making a band or whatever, maybe something like that. And she was trying to explain it. But she did do a good job of showing that those multiple different reasons, stories that she gave. The other thing that she also attacked her on was, why are you suing Diddy? Because, guys, she has a lawsuit right now in place with Diddy. And she said, oh, I want compensation. And she was like, okay, what is that compensation? Money, right? And she was like, yes. So basically, this lawyer did a good job of, number one, showing that she told multiple versions of the story with the Skillets incident. And then number two, how are you so scared of Diddy when he makes this threat about, you know, people go missing for this stuff? Because that you said yourself that you were scared for your life, but then you're contacting him after the fact and trying to work with him later on in the future. So she made a lot of these points. And another thing that also came up during this situation was Dawn said that she also witnessed Diddy punch Cassie at a Central Park event. And she got a black eye. And when she got the black eye, you know, they were shocked by that and that they all wore sunglasses in solidarity that day. And then the government showed pictures of Cassie and the two girls from this band that I mentioned before wearing the sunglasses. So, okay, that wraps up, I think, Dawn's testimony. Let me get a quick, give me one sec, guys. I'll get a quick protein shake, and we're going to keep cooking here. Give me, what's the next? The next witness is going to be Kerry Morgan. All right, give me one sec, chat. All right. All right. Some dude said, L, skinny boy needing protein. Shut the fuck up, Vejero Santos. This is why you don't even lift, you fat fuck. Probably talking shit with triple chin. Anyway, only thing you lift are cheeseburgers, you fat fuck. All right, let's get into the next witness, which is going to be Kerry Morgan. Now, you guys are probably wondering, who the fuck is Kerry Morgan? Kerry Morgan is Cassie's best friend. They were best friends for roughly 17 years. They met during a photo shoot in the earlier 2000s. I think since like 2001, they've been friends. Because before this, guys, Cassie was a model before she became a musician. So basically, the big thing with her is she was there when Cassie was getting abused. She was there the day that Cassie got hit on March 5th, 2016, when Cassie, remember I told you guys that they were doing a freak-off that went bad, and then Cassie came home? Well, Kerry Morgan was home when Cassie eventually came back, and what she said was, when Cassie came back, Diddy showed up, and he was knocking on a door, and they didn't open a door for him, right? Because he was trying to find Cassie after all this happened. Another story that she told, and you guys can see here that things are weaving together. Another story that she told was that her and Cassie were listening to her music one day at the apartment, and Diddy, who had bought her this apartment and had a key, he walks in one day yelling at Cassie. And when he's yelling at Cassie, Cassie's like kind of in the bathroom, and he just locks herself in. And he grabbed Kerry, according to her, he grabbed Kerry by the throat and kind of like threw her on the floor and then hit her in the head with a clothes hanger, right? And Kerry claims that she got a concussion from this and she went to the doctor, and after, getting the concussion and everything else like that, she wanted to go ahead and initiate a lawsuit. And when she was pushing to initiate this lawsuit, Cassie ended up meeting with her at a pizza shop later on informally and said, look, you're overreacting. It's not that serious. You're being dramatic about this. Sign this NDA and you're going to get paid $30,000, right? And this is in roughly 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So Kerry, signs the NDA, and let me see if I can find a picture of her for you guys. Okay, yeah, here she is right here. This is the day she testified. You guys can see her. She got agents around her and shit like that. So this is her, right? So this is Cassie's best friend, like I said before. So what she said was after she got hit with that thing and Diddy and Cassie gave her that NDA to sign, her and Cassie's friendship was strained and they haven't talked since. Now, she also documented how, she was always around Diddy. They went to Burning Man a couple of years together, which Burning Man, I guess, is like a EDM music festival where you camp out in the desert in Vegas or some shit like that. They went to that together. They showed pictures of them hanging out. Kerry was very involved in Cassie's life and was always there when they went and traveled and stuff like that. They went to Italy. They went to different places. So that's kind of why they brought Kerry in, was to kind of establish, that they had this lifestyle, but there was a dark side behind it because Kerry was witness to some of the violent acts or aftermath of it as Cassie's best friend. Another thing that they asked her about was, hey, I'm sure you and Cassie talked quite a bit about Diddy. Why did Cassie stay with him? Despite, Kerry was saying that Cassie stayed because, he was paying her bills, he was taking care of her. She didn't want to ruin her music career. She loved him, blah, 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 all this shit. So that's where Kerry came in. Also, another important thing for you guys to know, they subpoenaed Kerry. They subpoenaed her, which means they basically forced her to show up to court and testify. She did not want to show up. Now, I think she's like 38, 39. She's a personal assistant for somebody out in L.A. She's originally from Buffalo, New York. So she didn't want to testify, but she got subpoenaed. And there was a couple of witnesses that got subpoenaed that didn't want to testify. So that's what happened with Kerry. All right, let's see here. All right, guys, we got let's see here. We got 3,000. We got like 4,000 ninjas in here. Do me a solid, guys. Like the video. Okay, we got only 1,100 likes. We got 3,000 plus, around 3,000 you guys here on YouTube, and then we got another. What do we got here? We got another 1,000 you guys watching on Rumble. So do me a solid, guys. Like the video. Support your ninja. Really appreciate it. And we're going to keep cooking here. Give me ones, guys, if this testimony all makes sense so far. And I'm going to go ahead and drop a video on this, by the way. A clip on this that goes over each of the testimony, nice and edited for y'all. Because I don't think anyone's went line by line with each of the different witnesses. Hollow Man said the soundboard audio is bad. Also, when you play the Cassie video, the audio is bad. Your mic is good. Bro, nigga, everybody said that the audio was good, man, when I play the video. Some of you guys are trolling. Some of you guys are not trolling. It's fucking annoying. All right, let's see here. Okay, most of you guys got ones in the chat. All right, sweet. All right. So now we're going to get into video. My bad. All right, now we're going to go ahead and get into the next topic, which is going to be the next witness, who was David James. Okay, so David James, guys, is basically he was a personal assistant of Diddy from 2000, I think 7 to about 2009ish. One of the earlier assistants, and basically, he was talking about how, as an assistant, he's getting work to the bone. He's working 20 hours plus a day sometimes. He was coordinating a lot of the stuff that Diddy wanted, his trips to Saint-Tropez, getting him yachts, ensuring that anywhere that he went, he had the supplies and stuff that he needed to have a comfortable stay wherever he went. He was responsible for procuring the baby oil, setting up the hotel rooms for Diddy in this era. The biggest thing that stands out in his testimony, this guy was actually kind of funny, but the biggest thing that stands out in his testimony that was a big point of contention was he gave a story how Diddy basically had 3 guns on his lap, and they went around in L.A. searching for Suge Knight. Now, the Suge Knight story also came up during Cassie's testimony as well, where she said that they were in the middle of a freak-off, and Diddy was told by D-Rock that Suge Knight was at Mel's Diner, and, you know, they stopped what they were doing, and they ran over there to try to find him. They grabbed some masks and guns, and they went over there to try to find him. But this guy is saying whether it's the same incident or not, I'm not sure exactly, but he said that there was an incident as well where Diddy, his security guard, D-Rock, etc., went to go try to find Suge Knight at this diner. I think it's called Mel's Diner in L.A., and Diddy had 3 guns on his lap, and it was D-Rock, this guy, David James, and Diddy looking for Suge Knight. And this was a big part of his testimony. Some other funny things that they talked about was how, and the defense on cross-examination said, hey, you know, is it not true that you brought hookers to Diddy's house? And he said, well, I didn't know she was a hooker at the time. When I brought her in, you know, they had sex with her at the house, and Diddy wasn't there. And him and D-Rock brought these 2 girls from the hotel back, and they had sex. And then the girl asked him, hey, I want $200. And Dave James here, he didn't want to give the money. He was like, what the hell? These girls are escorts. This is bullshit, because I guess D-Rock had brought them back. And D-Rock said, bro, just pay the money, because, you know, we don't want to deal with no scandals or anything like that. And, you know, he ended up paying her the $200. And then the girl said, hey, can I use the shower? And he said, yeah, it's going to cost you $200, which the fucking courtroom erupted when he said that shit. Was hilarious. But the point I'm trying to make is, the point I'm trying to make is that this guy also was another witness that did not want to testify. This guy was one of Diddy's early assistants. And the defense was trying to, you know, hurt his credibility. Another thing that the defense hit him on was that Diddy had asked him to go make a police report. And this guy said that he didn't do it. He lied. He's saying, even though he said that he did do it, because he came home one day and Diddy said, hey, go file a police report that the chef assaulted me. This woman named Jordan, who was one of his chefs. Apparently they got an argument or altercation or whatever, and Diddy wanted this guy to go and make a complaint against her on Diddy's behalf, and he never did it. So that's what ended up happening there with this David James guy. That's his testimony summarized. The next witness was Regina Ventura. So Regina Ventura, this is Cassie Ventura's mom, a.k.a., you know, Cassie. Cassie's real name is Cassandra Ventura, and her mom, obviously, as you guys know, is Regina. They're from New London, Connecticut, and the 2 biggest things with Regina was she talked about how back in roughly 2016, Diddy took Cassie's phone, and Cassie also talked about this as well. So the story is basically this, because Cassie brought this up in her testimony, and so did Regina, to corroborate, and this is why I think they brought Regina in. The story goes like this. In 2016, Cassie was talking to an NFL player. Diddy found out about this, and when they were hanging out one day, he basically said, hey, text your mom and tell her you're okay, and send her this message. And when Cassie was doing this, and she unlocked her iPhone to tell her mom this message, Diddy snatched the phone and ran away. Dude basically turned into fucking Goku. And Cassie, obviously, she couldn't chase him, and he got away. And he held the phone for hours. So Cassie goes home to her mom, and her mom basically gets pissed off and says, what the fuck? He stole your phone from you? And she's like, yeah. So she calls the police. And I don't know what ended up happening with the police or whatever, but long story short, Diddy ends up coming by Cassie's house later. And Cassie's mom confronts him. Cassie was living in this like high-rise apartment at the time in LA. So Cassie's upstairs on like the 17th floor. I think that's where her apartment was. And the mom comes downstairs to confront Diddy. And she says, hey, what the fuck? Give my daughter back her phone. And she ends up like trying to fucking fight him.
Welcome. Punch.
She literally tries to hit him. And, you know, in her testimony, she says that she didn't land any hits, right? Like she tried to hit him and she couldn't do it. You know, I could just imagine. Could you imagine like this old lady is trying to fucking hit Diddy and he's just like, ooh, take that. Yeah. Ooh, you can't. Oh, you missed. Oh, too bad. Oh, yep, I'm holding his phone. Dumb bitch. Oh, yep, you too old. Oh, yeah. He's like, Harlem shaking on there and shit like that. So as she was like telling this story in my head, I'm like, bro, no fucking way. This fucking old lady's trying to fucking hit Diddy in front of a luxury apartment complex saying, give me back my daughter's fucking phone and shit. Like, craziness, man. So, funny shit. So long story short, he ends up giving the phone back to her. Right? Ends up giving the phone back to the mom. And, you know, it kind of ends there. Also, what the mom talked about was how back in late 2011, Cassie, as you guys know, was dating Kid Cudi. And when Diddy found out about this, he gave her this fucking Spartan kick that I mentioned before.
This is Sparta!
And shortly thereafter, she was kicked. Cassie went home to Connecticut to spend Christmas with her family. When she went to go spend Christmas with her family in New London, Connecticut, she had bruising. And her mom took the Polaroid pictures of the bruising. She had a mark on her lower back, and she had marks on her front quad, and I think on her arm. And the mom documented all this and took pictures. That's another reason why they brought her in as a witness. And she also testified that Kid Cudi came with Cassie when Cassie came back home for Christmas. So that's another important thing as well. So that's kind of what Cassie's mom brought to the table. And then the defense did not cross-examine her. So I remember that. I wrote in my notes that the defense actually said no questions for Miss Ventura. So I thought that was kind of interesting how the defense didn't even bother to cross-examine her. The other thing as well that I want to mention to you guys, which, you know, before I forget here, and it's coming back to me now. Another thing that the defense did when they cross-examined Cassie was they asked her about her motives, her financial motives. And what they basically said, hey, is it not true that prior to you filing this lawsuit, you and your husband, Alex, moved back to your home in New London? And she was like, yes. And she was like, well, you know, were you having financial problems? And she was, you know, kind of trying to avoid the question saying that she didn't have financial problems because the defense was trying to allege like, hey, you did this for money. And what they asked her was, didn't you have a music tour set up last year? And she said, yes, she was supposed to go on like this big international tour, 60 cities, whatever it may be. And she was going to go with some other artists and, you know, kind of be a tag along. And she had been preparing for it. But when she won the lawsuit, she backed out of this tour. And I said, well, why did you back out the tour? Right? Like, you get this lawsuit and then you get this money. Now you back out. Why'd you do that? And she said, basically, she wanted to spend more time with her kids. And she had been drained from the lawsuit ordeal. That was her excuse. But the defense kind of tried to frame it like, you moved back to your parents' house in New London, a very modest house, compared to you living with Diddy, having these homes and lavish experience, going on jets or whatever. Because Cassie did talk a lot about how they lived a certain type of lifestyle where, you know, they were traveling a lot. They had a bunch of money doing whatever it is. So that's something also that the defense wanted to bring up, that she had financial motives for this. And it just came back to me as I was describing to you guys that Cassie went home for Christmas, only for Christmas in 2011 to go see her mom. But then later on, I think like in 2022 or 2023, she moved back in with her mom with her husband, Alex. Okay. Next witness is, okay, Sheree Hayes. Okay, this shit is crazy. So Sheree Hayes, a.k.a. the fucking Punisher, okay, and I kid you not, the guy's name is literally the Punisher, and he has a website called getpunished.com, which I'm not going to fucking try to pull up on here. I think it's an escort service, or how do you book a stripper service. But this guy basically was very similar to witness number 2, Daniel Phillips. He also was a male stripper that was hired by Cassie under the pretense of being a dancer for a bachelorette party. And what ended up happening was when he shows up, Cassie is there with a towel and there's no fucking bachelorettes. And he's like, okay. So he walks in and he was supposed to get paid $200 for this thing. The way he described it is he typically gets paid about $200 for 30 to 45 minutes where he does a little striptease act and he gets the fuck out of there, right? So he shows up. Cassie greets him. I think she had a wig on when they first met. And another important fact for you guys, whenever an escort would come the first time, Cassie would typically either wear a mask or wear a wig to disguise her appearance. And Diddy would wear a bandana to cover his face or a veil, which we're going to talk about here in this story. So he goes and he meets her at the Trump Hotel, right by Central Park. And when he's there, she lets him in and she pays him $800. And she's like, okay, go in the bathroom and change. And just so you know, it's not a bachelor party, but my husband's going to kind of just watch us, you know, do our thing. We're going to create a sexy scene. We're going to recreate a sexy scene is what Cassie told him. So he goes into the bathroom and basically gets naked and puts himself in a towel. He comes back out. As he comes back out, he observes little like bowls of a baby oil, right? He's like, oh, that's kind of weird. So Cassie instructs him to kind of like rub the baby oil on him and her and, whatever. Now, as he's doing this, he sees a dark male figure in the background slowly walk into the room. And the individual is naked, according to him, in his testimony. And the individual is wearing a veil, okay? Like, like what the fucking, basically it was, bro, nigga was wearing one of these goddamn things right here.
Allahu Akbar!
I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. He was wearing like one of these, right? Like a burqa. Okay? So he's sitting there, right, with Cassie. Yeah, I know. Y'all niggas are like, what the fuck is going on here? So he's sitting there with Cassie, and he's rubbing baby oil on himself, on himself and shit like that. And this fucking figure's walking in the fucking back. Mind you, the room is dimly lit. There's candles. There's baby oil all over the place, right? Because as you guys know, Diddy liked the hotel room to be in a certain way with certain types of candles and lights and all this other shit. So he's in there and he sees some nigga in the background. He's like, what the fuck? So he's like, what the? And obviously he's trying not to be awkward. So he's just like, keep rubbing himself. And the dude like kind of sits down and just sits in the back and just chills, and he has his veil on. So he's like, what the fuck? And then the guy starts giving instructions. Okay, he starts giving Cassie instructions. He didn't really talk to him too much. He was talking more to Cassie. Like, hey, move that candle over there. Okay, do this. Okay, rub yourself a little bit more here, blah, blah, blah. All this shit. And he was whacking off, chat. He was whacking off in the back as this is all going on. So after that, Cassie basically asks him, hey, do you want to finish? And he's like, no, I'm gonna just, I think I'm just gonna go home, right? And because he was weirded out. And she was like, okay, that's fine. And she gives him $1,200, right? So she gave him $800 up front when he came, and then she gave him another $1,200 at the end. So he goes to the elevator, he counts everything, he made like $2,000, right? So at this point, he didn't know who they were, right? It wasn't until a subsequent visit where he goes into the hotel room and he sees the TV and it says, welcome Sean Combs, right? That's when he put two and two together, like, oh shit, this is like Diddy and stuff. And then at that point, Diddy stopped wearing masks and stuff because once they started getting more comfortable with him, they started to trust him more and stuff like that. And I think this guy was working with them for like 2 years or so, right? Sporadically. They'd call him, he'd, get involved, they'd do a freak off, whatever. So now let's fast forward a bit to how he got fired. So basically what ends up, he also tells this other story. He told one story where he was having sex with Cassie, and I guess Diddy got so excited, he ran into the room, and he was already there, and he fucking throws a bunch of fucking money at him and Cass, and Cass even looked back, started like, are you okay? He was like, no, I'm good, I'm just having fun. Right? So he really enjoyed this fucking shit, bro. He really did, man. So, hey, I guess different strokes for different folks, quite literally. So, now to fast forward to the main thing. So what ended up happening was he ended up getting fired. And the reason why he got fired was he describes on their last interaction, he was there, getting ready to do a freak off. They did their baby oil shit, all this other stuff. And he was, performing oral sex on Cassie. And I guess Diddy was really excited by this. And, as he was watching this, and he stood up and he pulled out two condoms and he just threw them at this guy and Cassie. This guy's name is the Punisher, by the way. And, that kind of threw him off because he was like, oh shit. Because he'd typically been having sex with Cassie raw, right? He's been having unprotected sex with her. And this guy, and he kind of goes into this in detail in the in his testimony, he's had erectile dysfunction his whole life. And guys, I know some of y'all niggas are like, what the fuck is Myra talking about? Guys, I kid you not, bro. And then they ask him questions like, did you not release a book? And he says, yeah, I released a book about erectile dysfunction and how I conquered it. And they asked him, what was the name of the book? And the nigga says, In Search of Freezer Meat. bro, like, and this is the book. Guys, it's real. It was not capped. This is the book right here. Okay? This is the fucking In Search of Freezer Meat. Where's my meat? A story of the male mental health crisis caused by erectile dysfunction. The only true cure is no one is talking about a penis implant. Like, yes, chat. I know. Y'all niggas are like, what the fuck is going on here? Right? And this is the cover of the book. Some niggas in chat, the flaccid Punisher. So, yeah, dude, I don't really know what to say more than that. The guys, as you can see here, Sheree Hayes, she got 5 stars. He's probably got crazy book sales right now, bro. This nigga. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, bro. Chat, I don't know either. What the fuck is going on? I felt as though I was in a fucking bizarro world when this was going on. And I'll never forget this. The defense asked him, why is it called In Search of Freezer Meat? And he said, because, you know, I want my meat to be hard. You know, frozen meat is hard. And I was like, bro.
Bombocard.
What is this trial? What is this trial? Right? We're all sitting there, like, looking at each other, laughing, like, what the fuck is going on? So, what's up?
I need to tell you something real quick, but just continue.
All right. So, you know, we're just sitting there laughing at this shit, and it was just ridiculous. So anyway, yeah, In Search of Freezer Meat. I'm not kidding around. It's on fucking Amazon, guys. He literally has a book on him getting a penis implant and how he had a hard time with all this stuff. But yes, the long story short is when Diddy threw these condoms at him and said, okay, I want to watch you fuck her, and he was all excited, he couldn't get an erection because, number one, he was using a condom, and he's always had this erectile dysfunction. So that's kind of how we got into this whole situation and this whole story. So, yeah. So yeah, that concludes Sheree Hayes. And I think this nigga went on Pierce Morgan, bro, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look here real quick. He goes by the name The Punisher, and his website is called Get Punished. I shit you not, guys. Let me look this up real quick. We'll watch a little bit of it, and then we'll get back to the next witnesses.
Whatever works best for you.
All right, so that's him. This is him here, this guy.
Of this, it seems to me, you like to be called the Punisher.
Whatever works best for you.
At the center of this, it seems to me, is going to be the issue of consent. What is your view? I mean, do you believe this was all consensual? Are you 100% convinced that your son did not commit the shooting for which he's serving this sentence?
I'm absolutely convinced. I've always been convinced. There's been so much foul play. And I'm not just saying this as some sort of pissed off parent.
The evidence as of right now is showing that there are no bullet fragments that have been presented, which will let people assume what they will not.
Exotic dancer Sheree Hayes, better known as the Punisher, testified at Diddy's trial in Manhattan yesterday. He's also the author of a new book called In Search of Freezer Meat, and he joins me now. Well, welcome to Uncensored, Mr. Hayes. How do I call you? Is Mr. Hayes how you like to be called, or would you like to be called the Punisher?
Hayes, Sheree, whatever works best for you. I believe it or not, I get called the Punisher more than I get called my government name, so I'm fine with either one.
First of all, I mean, how are you dealing with the fact that, you know, you were pretty well unknown before this? Now everybody knows you as the Punisher. It's a weird thing to happen to you in your life. How are you dealing with that?
Believe it or not, locally, it's pretty still consistent. In the New York City area, I've been dancing like I testified to for 30 years, and I did reach a decent degree of local popularity. So it's pretty much still the same scenario for me in terms of interacting and people knowing me for being an exotic dancer. I think the part of it that's difficult is not the Punisher thing. It's I went from a dancer to a male prostitute, possible escort, based on this scenario, which is not actually accurate.
The court heard that you estimated you took part in 8 to 10 of the Diddy
freak-offs,
sex parties, which took place exclusively in New York. Sometimes they took multiple days. They would begin sometimes at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. on the stand.
We'll play a little bit about for this. We'll play a little of this for you guys. I'm gonna take a quick pace while he plays. I know all this testimony, but yeah, now you guys can put a face to the name. This nigga really got a book called In Search of Freezer Meat.
Cassie Ventura detailed graphic sexual scenarios or freak-offs with Sean Diddy Combs. She dropped allegations of drug usage, violence, blackmail, even rape. At the center of this, it seems to me, is going to be the issue of consent, as to whether she was consenting to all this as a willing participant in this. What is your view? I mean, do you believe this was all consensual? Or do you think that, as the prosecution want the jury to believe, this was all coercion, control, and criminal?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm only privy to the circumstances that I was a part of. And as similar to I testified to, I didn't get any cues, didn't have any thing that would lead me to believe in the moment that she was under any duress or any force scenario. It was presented to me that this was something that she wanted to create for her husband. You know, for the majority of the time I interacted with them, I believe they were a married couple. And I believed, based on me following them on Instagram and whatever interactions that I seen, although minimally, it seemed like a normal situation. I didn't get any cues to it being a distressful environment.
I mean, people, you know, you say normal. A lot of people have been pretty shocked by the details coming out of this court case. For most people, I would argue this is not normal sexual behavior to call.
Guys, do me a solid too, guys. We got 3,100 you guys in here just on YouTube alone, and then we got another 1,000 plus on Rumble. So, guys, do me a solid. Like the video on YouTube. Let's get to 2,000 likes, guys. Let's get to 2,000 likes. I'm giving y'all the sauce. I'll watch a little bit more of this with you guys, and then we're going to go and continue on with the witnesses.
Call in and pay somebody like you, in Diddy's case, to come on and have sex with his girlfriend as he watches. Most people don't view that as normal. Other people might, right? So I'm not here to judge the normality or otherwise of it. But was there anything about what happened when you were there which unsettled you?
So I agree with you about normal. When I used the word normal, I was talking about the interactions between him and her, just as far as their scenarios. I didn't get any cues that there was some tension or an intense environment. As far as the sexual scenario, even with me being in the exotic dancer business for many years, that environment was very uncomfortable for me.
A funny thing, also, he's like on his 30th anniversary of being a stripper, and the defense attorney was like, "Oh, congratulations on your anniversary." That was another funny thing during the fucking trial.
It was something I was not used to, something that I'd never took part of in any type of extensive scenario. So it was definitely uncomfortable, but it didn't, at the same time, it still didn't appear, other than us trying to create this scene and some of the direction that I did sense some frustration. I said in my testimony, I saw her sigh at times and look frustrated at the cues and the direction I was given. Other than that stuff, I didn't see anything that was off. And again, even me mentioning it in trial, it was in hindsight, because if there were no allegations, I might not have read into it at all.
The first time you met them both was at a hotel room in Trump Tower, owned, of course, by the now President of the United States. It's on Central Park West. I stayed there myself when I did The Apprentice years ago. I believe Cassie Ventura, you testified, greeted you at the door in a bathrobe, and you were specifically told not to acknowledge Sean Diddy Combs, who was sitting in the corner. He was wearing a veil over his face, but you knew it was him, I presume.
I did not.
Oh, you didn't know it was him?
I did not know. I did not recognize her. And again, his face was completely covered to the degree where you could only see his eyes. So
that's the burqa shit I told you guys about.
I was totally unaware of who they were. Actually leaving, I tried to do some Google searches because obviously I understood that this was some sort of a prominent couple, but because she initially said they...
Also in his book, he did dedicate a portion of the Diddy stuff to in his book, but he didn't mention them by name. He just said an affluent couple when in his book. He didn't want to, and he testified and said that he didn't want it to, you know, hurt their reputation and shit, so he didn't want to dox them.
Were married. I recall searching married couples, and I was going to draw a blank because they're in fact not married.
You testified that the man was nude, wearing a Muslim-like face covering, and that he was masturbating in the corner while he watched you with his girlfriend, and that you said that Cassie and this man then left the room after about half an hour. When she came back, she asked you whether you wanted to finish. This was the quote used, and you declined. You were then paid an additional $1,200 and left the hotel. So at what point did you realize this was Diddy, one of the most famous rappers in the world?
I mean, embarrassingly, I have to say, this duration of these meetups went on from 2012 to 2015, and it might have been well over a year into interacting with them before I figured it out. And I never figured it out visually. And
all right, I think you guys get the idea here. But yes, this is the Punisher right here, a.k.a. the flaccid Punisher. Let's get into the next witness, okay? The next witness on this case was Gerard Gannon, okay? And Gerard Gannon, guys, was the special agent that ran the Miami search warrant. Remember how I told you guys before Yasin Binda ran the New York search warrant after they arrested Diddy? Well, on March 25th, if I'm not mistaken, 2024, last year, they did the search warrant at his house. If you guys remember, right here, just again, show you guys a visualization.
Hi there, Michael and Judge Ashley. Court has ended for the day in Lower Manhattan. Today, we did hear from 4 witnesses, a personal assistant of Sean Combs, Cassie Ventura's mother, also a male escort who took part in those freak-offs. And
well, I just described for you guys all just a second ago.
Then the day wrapped up with a special agent from the Human Trafficking Division of the Homeland Security Department.
Funny story. He's from HSI Miami, guys, so he literally came from the same office I did and came from the Human Trafficking Group.
Who was on the stand. And when his testimony was wrapping up, he actually walked over to the jury and he was showing them 2 AR-15s that had been disassembled. These were weapons that were seized from Sean Combs' Miami mansion.
And you guys remember when they had these, when they did these searches here, and I showed you guys the case number here as well. We went over that.
Also, just as court was wrapping up, he was beginning to open up a bag, but he was stopped inside that bag.
Okay, so this right here, this is Tony, guys. This is Tony Anthony Salisbury. He was a special agent in charge when I was over at HSI. He was the one that brought me in and said, hey, man, you got to pick one. So he is, now I think if I'm not mistaken, he's like a direct, he works directly for Trump now over at DHS as an advisor. So I don't think he works for HSI anymore particularly, but he was a special agent in charge when I was there from 2018 to 2020. I don't have any animosity towards the guy. You know what I mean? Obviously, when they brought me in, they were like, dude, you know, you're a great agent. You know, you got a big case. Like, you know, doing this stuff on YouTube is going to, you know, hurt you when you testify in court. Like, it's going to hurt. People are going to bring that shit up. And I was like, well, you know, I got employees at this point. I can't really leave. And, you know, it was a civil conversation, right? There's no bad blood. I wish him the best. But, you know, this kind of just sucked because at that point I had employees and shit like that. But yeah, this is him right here. Tony Salisbury. Nice guy. You know, I don't have any animosity towards him. But he was a special agent in charge of Miami when I was there. And you can see he was still the SAC because he was obviously here on site as they were doing the search warrant. But I think now, if I'm not mistaken, he works directly for Trump when it comes to providing providing guidance when it comes to DHS.
Or high-heeled platform shoes. And so at that point, court ended the judge decided that court is going to end for the day. So we'll have more of that tomorrow when he's probably going to begin with his testimony and then eventually be pulling out those high-heeled platform shoes. So why don't we talk about some of the other things that took place today? So when that special agent was on the stand talking about that Miami mansion raid, this was back in March of 2024, and we do have some video of that we can show our viewers. And so how the agent was describing this raid, 80 plus.
Okay, so SRT, this is the special response team, guys. HSI Miami has this, and all the big field offices have this. They're basically their SWAT team. Anytime you're executing warrants. Now, the other thing that's important for you guys to realize, they did the warrant in the middle of the day. If you guys remember when this news broke, it was in the middle of the day around 3 p.m. or so that they hit the houses. And the reason why is because they had information that Diddy actually was going to be leaving the country. So what they did was they waited until he left the country with his family. Then they hit the houses so that they wouldn't, there wouldn't be a chance of evidence being destroyed or whatever it may be.
Plus agents stormed Sean Combs' home. They used an armored vehicle to make their way through.
And they smashed the gate when they broke in.
The gates of his Miami mansion out there on Star Island. And once inside, they seized baby oil as well as Astroglide as well as weapons. And so the jury was
2 AR-15s with the serial number scratched off.
Shown some photographs.
And he had that in the courtroom.
Of some of the items that they seized from his property. Now, before the special agent, we did hear from a male escort, his name, the Punisher. He testified that he took part in 8 to 12 freak-offs, and he described...
let me see if I could get the actual coverage for you guys when they were doing the actual search. Here we go.
Nope, just these...
This is when this originally broke. This was on what day? Probably March 25th, 2024. I remember this shit when this news broke originally.
The guys on the ground down there, the heavily armed officers that made their way inside, they actually are kind of just milling about or holding the perimeter, as it would be. The non-essential, you can see them making their way back over to these armored vehicles, probably doing a little debrief about what they saw. In any type of these situations, it really is, you've got these armored officers that go in first, but I would venture to say the investigators or the people that know what they're looking for probably still out there on the streets, and they're waiting for that all clear to make sure that there is absolutely nobody on this property. And again, this is just a precaution. They don't want to have...
Obviously, this was a big search warrant, guys. We're talking about, this house is about 20,000 square feet, if I'm not mistaken, from what the agent said on testimony. It's a big fucking villa. So, basically, let's go through his testimony real quick. So he showed some of the evidence that they did, how they went ahead and did the search warrant. Obviously, once they had the search warrant signed, the agent himself said he didn't know that they were going to do the search warrant until about 7 or 8 days prior. Obviously, HSI New York kept everything kind of close to their chest. But when they executed the search warrant, they used an armored truck, broke in, which obviously it's legal to do that. And then the SRT team went in to clear the house. Once they cleared the house, the SWAT team I showed you guys before, the regular agents went in to actually conduct the search, with the labeling the rooms, 2 guys to a room, 3 guys to a room, 4 guys to a room, depending on how big it was, seizing evidence or whatever. They seized high heels, Astroglide, lube, the AR-15s, etc. So that's what he testified to, because he was the one that ran this search warrant that I'm currently showing you guys right now. He was the lead agent on that.
Any kind of issues, maybe somebody's hiding still.
That's why he testified.
Maybe just scared, and it doesn't have to be nefarious, and just because they don't know what's going on, and they just don't want to have somebody pop out of a closet or a bathroom or any one of these rooms.
Yeah, so when they do the first run, guys, the first thing they're doing is clearing the house, making sure no one's in there. They detain everyone that they came across. During his testimony, the agent said that they did detain something like 6 people while they were doing the search.
While they're doing that investigation, and then other problems can ensue. So that's basically why we're seeing that large presence. They keep
now, and when they said 80 to 90 agents were involved in a search, that's total. That doesn't mean that there were 80 to 90 agents on the scene the whole time. The SWAT team itself is about 24 guys, 2 teams of 12. So roughly that leaves 60 plus 70 agents to run the actual search. So that's not crazy for a house this big, guys. They had to search the entire premises.
walking through there. And like you mentioned, this is an extremely large home and probably with many rooms and a little secret area. So they want to make sure that everything is cleared before they allow those investigators in to start doing that investigation, whatever it is that they're looking for. But you can see a number of those officers making their way back into that major. This is the big main house, as it would be.
Yeah, so right here, more than likely, just from how I'm seeing them stack on this is the secondary search.
Making their way.
So they did the first search, cleared it. Now they're doing one more just to make sure. And then the regular agents are going to go in and do their searches.
Back in.
And you can see here, these agents here, more than likely, you can see they're wearing like pantsuits and shit. This is management right here. These guys are probably supervisors and ASACs.
Side, and I would venture to say that they're going to just go through every one of those rooms and make sure that there is nobody in there. I don't think they're those guys that we're seeing, guys and gals that we're seeing in those heavily armored gear and equipment. I don't think they're actually searching for any items that could connect whatever the investigation is. I would venture to say that those are going to be the guys that you're seeing right there, and they're waiting for that all clear. And then this group that you see there, those are the ones that are actually going to go inside. They probably have, like you said, they probably have ideas what they're looking for, where they might be. So, but right now it is still a waiting game to make sure that everybody is out of this building and that it is secure for the investigators to make their way in and actually start that search.
And we should mention, thank you, Stu, that if this is in fact involving a sex trafficking investigation, we do know that according to Diddy's attorneys and the rapper himself, he has denied.
And this is the first time that we realized that they actually had him actively investigation. Remember, guys, so the case began in November of 2023. They did the search warrant in March of 2024, and then he got arrested in November of 2024. So we're talking about this case. By the time it's all said and done, it's going to be a 2-year thing.
Any wrongdoing in any of all this. So there are two sides, of course, to this as this all plays out. But it is interesting that these raids happening at the same time. According to TMZ, a raid of his Miami home is happening right now, as well as now we're looking at the live pictures of.
Yeah, they raided his house in L.A. as well, guys.
What's going on in Holmby Hills at this mansion right here, all connected to Sean Combs. So again, until we find out further word.
Now, I will say that I didn't hear anything about an HSI agent from L.A. testifying. They might have not found any evidence in the L.A. home because the L.A. home he doesn't actually own, guys. He was renting it. So we'll see.
As to what exactly they're searching for and why, we continue to look at the procedures taking place regarding this raid that's being conducted by Homeland Security. You have support from local law enforcement officials as well. We saw from the ground shots, you see.
That's the truck that they used to break down the gate.
Multiple agencies there. A part of all of this, and they have a number of resources on hand with a drone flying up top as well.
Oh, the reason why, guys, they hit it so hard, I know some of you guys saying, yo, this is unnecessary. The reason why they hit it this way, guys, is because his security, they're all armed. And obviously they knew about the Suge Knight stuff. Remember that story I told you guys about Suge Knight and them trying to chase him down, and they knew that Diddy had guns. So that's why now that you were seeing the trial, we're seeing why they came the way that they did. Because they had this information on a security team always carrying guns.
As they had ladders taking a closer look at.
And when they get info like that, they're obviously always going to send in the SRT.
At certain parts of the property. And so they are looking at every nook and cranny they need to in terms of why they're investigating this home and property. So clearly this is going to take a while. And as Haley mentioned, with her shot down on the ground right there, more people are coming to your area, Haley.
Yeah, I would say it's mostly media at this point. We were the first ones here on scene, but yeah, since there's probably a dozen different media agencies. Yeah, it looks like his homes on both coasts are being raided. We still have not gotten word on exactly where P. Diddy is, if he is in fact in New York right now or in Los Angeles.
And the reason why they did this, guys, they simultaneously raided it is to make sure that, evidence doesn't get destroyed.
And of course, yeah, we haven't seen him here in Holmby Hills. This is right off of Sunset and Beverly Glen, and it all unfolded, I'd say, about 30 minutes ago. They're at his home here. They're also at his home in Miami, of course.
Yeah, I think this is the LA house here that we're looking at, chat.
It's a little bit calmer, I would say, than it was about 20 minutes ago when it all happened. The guns that were drawn earlier have been since put away. Looks like they just put away their drone, but of course doing a thorough job of checking the home for any kind of details that they can come up with related to these allegations against sexual
That's crazy. I didn't know they had a drone.
trafficking. As you said, Sandra, there's several lawsuits against him for these allegations, all of which he has denied. So we will have to wait and see. Of course, and everybody's interested in the details of what how he's connected to these latest allegations.
And from your vantage
we will bring
point,
the very latest as soon as, I'm sorry?
Yeah, from your vantage point, Haley, does it look like some authorities are leaving the scene right now? They're done, or not? Is that not the case?
No, it looks like more are coming. I think what you're seeing is just the vehicles moving to a different location. We're kind of at the bottom of the hill, but if you go up a little bit farther, some of the vehicles that you saw down here earlier have since kind of gone to the other side of the hill. This is obviously a very prestigious neighborhood. I said earlier, Humphrey Bogart's former house, I think, is next door to P. Diddy's in the 200 block here of Mapleton and Holmby Hills off of Sunset near Beverly Glen. So the vehicles have basically just moved forward. You're seeing a lot more of those law enforcement officers from the Department of Homeland Security, though, back here on the street in Mapleton since they've come out of the home after.
Yeah, 200 Mapleton is the LA house. 200 Mapleton. I remember that came up on trial a bunch of times.
They've done their thorough investigating inside that beautiful home belonging to P. Diddy, to Sean Combs. So I don't think they have any intention, Sandra, on going anywhere anytime soon. And overhead, you can see law enforcement helicopters and, of course, Stu up there in Sky Fox.
Thank you so much, Haley, for that perspective on the ground right there in front of that Holmby Hills mansion. Stu, up in Skyfox, it looks like, yes, there are some more law enforcement, but in different attire. Should I say suits instead of body armor?
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the management guys. All right, so now that you guys know the search warrants, let's go ahead and get into the next witness. We're going to get into Dawn Hughes. So Dawn Hughes, guys, is a psychiatrist that came in to testify. Her expertise is on domestic violence and, interpersonal relationships violence. So she basically was testifying that, a lot of the times people, when they're being, abused, it's very difficult for them to leave a relationship because, there might be some financial pressure where they can't leave or, they have a bunch of things that are kind of keeping them. And they were basically saying that, like, as they're being abused by their abuser, it makes it harder and harder to leave sometimes because what they're looking for is like almost like a slot machine type of excitement and validation where, they love bomb them, then they treat them bad, then they love bomb them, or they get this one instance of where they get a bunch of affection and they're constantly chasing that affection from their abuser. And that's what drives them to stay there longer. So that's what she was doing. Now, I do want to note that they brought her in as what's called an SME or a subject matter expert. So her job was to come in and kind of testify as an expert when it comes to abuse and how that goes. And she was also labeled a blind witness. Okay. And what that means is that as a blind witness, she's supposed to come in and just give testimony from her expertise. She doesn't know any of the facts of the case in particular. She doesn't know who the victims are, who the perpetrators are. She doesn't know the facts and circumstances on the case on as far as like what the evidence is. So she doesn't know any of that stuff. She's supposed to kind of come in and come in as a blind witness. Now, and she kind of described all this for the prosecution. Now on cross, though, the defense team did a pretty good job of attacking her biases and credibility to a degree because they're like, look, we are aware that you're a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever it may be, but, where do you make a majority of your money? And when they told her this, she was like, I don't make a majority of my money from testifying. But then the defense was like, well, roughly 60% of the money that you make is from testifying as a professional witness, right? And she was like, yes. So she's like, yes, so that's a majority. Basically, she was getting paid $600 an hour to be there. And she made $6,000 on that day of testimony, chat. And then the defense also attacked how she had met with prosecutors somewhere between 6 to 8 different times to prepare them or to be prepared for the trial. Now, the defense was basically being skeptical and they were questioning, like, look, if you're supposed to come in here as a professional blind witness, why would you be meeting with the government 6 to 8 different times to prepare for your testimony? That's a little off. So that's kind of where they were attacking her versus the prosecution was more focused on her accolades. She's a board certified psychiatrist. She has a lot of experience. She has like 30 years in it. Yale graduate. She, advises for the Cornell Board of Psychiatry. So the prosecution focused on her credentials and her expertise versus the defense was kind of criticizing her, saying that she's biased, and that her meeting with the government on all these different instances might impede her ability to be a blind witness. So that's kind of what went down with Dr. Dawn Hughes. That was the psychiatrist I was telling you guys about before. The next witness was George Kaplan. And George Kaplan, guys, was another one of Diddy's assistants. He, very similar to Andrew James, worked for Diddy from 2013 to 2015, if I'm not mistaken, roughly 2 years, just like Andrew. And his thing was, he did a lot of the same things that Andrew James did, where he would basically focus on making sure Diddy had whatever he needed. He had all the supplies whenever he was traveling. Whenever Diddy wanted drugs or whatever, he would go out and purchase the drugs for Diddy, get them for Diddy. Another unique thing that this guy did was whenever Diddy was staying at hotels, this guy would kind of go in and clean the hotel up after Diddy did what he had to do. And the reason for that is he claimed he was doing that to protect Diddy's image. And he was saying that at the time, tabloids and magazines and gossip channels, etc., would basically pay for photos from celebrities of their hotel room aftermaths, right? So basically, there was this thing going on where hotel staff would sell pictures and video to the media to embarrass celebrities. So him knowing this, he kind of took it upon himself to make sure that he went to every single hotel after Diddy was done with doing whatever he did and cleaning it up, right? In one case, he mentioned how he had to remove a powdery substance that he didn't know what it was. He would remove the baby oil. He would remove anything that might be embarrassing and hurt Diddy's image. And that's kind of the underlying tone of this investigation, guys. The reason why this trial is so shocking is because Diddy's done a very good job of basically keeping this from the public eye for so long. We're talking about the better part of 30 plus years. He's been able to kind of do these freak offs and have these perverted orgies and not necessarily have to. He didn't get caught, right? Nobody knew about it because he did a good job of having a cleanup crew. He had a very diverse staff that would secure all this stuff. And this guy Kaplan was one of those guys that did that. What the other testimony that was very important for Kaplan was he gave two instances where he saw violence from Diddy and that made him leave. And the instance he gave was on one instance, this woman named Gina, who Diddy had been dating on and off for a while, that actually led to Diddy breaking up with Cassie because Cassie saw a video of him, with her at an award show while she was in South Africa filming a movie. That's Cassie's perspective. The other thing that made George leave was that he witnessed Diddy at his house in Miami throwing apples or replicas of apples, whatever it may be, at this woman named Gina. And as he was throwing apples at Gina, he was hurling them. Like he wasn't just throwing them; he was like hurling them, trying to hurt her. After they got in an argument, and that kind of made him concerned. And another situation was he witnessed on a plane Diddy basically throwing things at Cassie. And that was what made him say, you know what, man, I'm good. And he told Diddy's chief of staff, a girl named Christy Coram, this woman right here, I'll show you guys real fast. Here she is. She was like Diddy's main assistant. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm shocked that she didn't get arrested or anything. But yeah, this is her, Christina Coram, aka KK, right? That's her. So, so he talked about, he told Christina, KK, hey, look, I can't really stand for this, seeing this violence and being witness to this. So I'm gonna leave. So that's kind of George Kaplan's testimony. He also said that he was being forced to be there through subpoena. He didn't want to testify against Diddy. Though he didn't enjoy all of his time hanging out with Diddy and stuff like that, he did give Diddy his credit and say that he's, very inspirational. He helped him become a man. And, though it was very difficult working for him, he did admire that, Diddy made him a stronger individual. The other story that he gave was how Diddy was very demanding. So apparently Diddy told him, hey, I need you to get me some water from Whole Foods, right? Some, I guess, BPA-free water, some shit like that. So, and I want a gallon of it. So he went to the Whole Foods and they didn't have a gallon, but they did have 2 half gallons. So what he did was he went and bought these 2 half gallons and then brought them back to Diddy. And Diddy yelled at him, got in his face, said, hey, you motherfucker, if you ever do this again, you're going to get fired. And he made a big stink about it, of him not bringing him exactly what he wanted. And again, during this trial, the theme basically was, and let me see if I could get a picture of this George Kaplan guy. Oh, yeah, this is him. Yep. This is him walking out the courthouse after day 1. You can see, look, you can see the little pin right here. HSI agents escorted him out. So, and that's what they were doing the whole time. And then this is him on the second day of trial with the green jacket. I remember seeing him wearing this. So this was day 1 when he showed up. And then day 2 in the green jacket. So he, you know, he didn't want to testify, this guy. He definitely didn't want to testify. Did they, let me see here. Did he give an interview? Let me see if I could find. Looks like he might have given an interview.
A former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs was on the stand earlier today in the music producer's sex trafficking trial.
Reporter Michelle Ross is live in New York City. And Michelle, tell us about those highlights in court yet again today.
Caroline Rashi, taking up most of today's testimony was a clinical and forensic psychologist named Dr. Dawn Hughes. And she testified as to why people stay in abusive relationships.
That's what I was describing for you guys before.
Dr. Hughes also revealed how...
Okay, there she is. That's her. And you can see here she's being escorted by HSI agents. I saw this guy when I was in the courtroom. So with all the government witnesses, the agents would always escort them out, right? Make sure they don't get overrun by fucking tabloids and shit. I can tell this guy's a newer guy, young dude.
How much she makes. She's paid $600 per hour for her work, and for one day of testimony, $6,000.
That's crazy, bro.
She testified in other high-profile cases, like the defamation trial with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, singer R. Kelly, and NXIVM founder Keith Raniere. She dug into 4 main topics.
Yeah, see, here's an HSI guy here. They were probably running motorcade. I saw this guy, actually, when I was getting lunch, I saw him and another guy. So they were probably running the witnesses to and from court.
Today, why people stay in these types of relationships, how they cope, how and when they reveal what happened.
And whenever you're running a trial, guys, and you got your witnesses, the marshals aren't going to deal with this. The HSI has to deal with this because it's their case. So they got to, you know, take their witnesses to and from the courthouse, make sure they're good, make sure they're safe.
Happened to them and memory. She explained that abusive relationships do have love, and trauma bonding can make it harder to leave, and taking illegal substances can numb the pain of it all. Now, the last witness to take the stand was George Kaplan, a former assistant to Sean Combs, who says one of his responsibilities was to set up Diddy's hotel rooms. The first time he unpacked his bag, he said he found baby oil, Astroglide, candles, and liquor. The other times, he'd have to buy the items on his corporate card. He also had to make sure the rooms were in polished shape before checkout to protect Diddy's image, and often threw out empty baby oil bottles and once threw out a powdery crystal substance.
What I just told you guys before.
And he said he was instructed by Diddy to pick up drugs 2 times. Both times he testified, Diddy gave him cash to pay for it and gave him a number to call someone to pick it up.
Yeah, basically the 2 times, once in LA and once in Miami, if I'm not mistaken. When it was in Miami, I think it was like for cocaine. And then when it was in LA, it was pills, and he wasn't sure what it was for. But Diddy gave him the cash. He'd go meet the guy. Diddy gave him the cash, gave him a phone number, told him go meet this guy. He'd go get the stuff, bring it back.
Now, tomorrow we'll continue with his testimony, with George Kaplan's testimony. But after Kaplan, we expect to see rapper Kid Cudi on the stand. Now,
and that will bring us right here to Kid Cudi. So, and here's Kid Cudi. Let's see if we can get him coming into the courtroom as well. And I'll give you guys a summary of his stuff.
Day 9 was a wild one in the criminal case against Sean. He told the court that he started dating Cassie around 2011. And in December of that year, Cassie told him Diddy had found out.
Yeah, he wore a leather jacket, white shirt. That's what he wore in the courtroom.
About us. The same day, he said that he got a call from a Diddy employee who told him that Diddy was at his house.
Okay, let me give you guys more detail than this. Basically, this is what happened, right? So, late 2011. So Diddy introduced Cassie to your boy Kid Cudi here. And for those of you that don't know, oh, what the hell? My bad. Real quick, just I know some of you guys are not inclined. Yes, that's him. This is his song.
I keep stressing my mind. I look for peace, but see I don't attain.
This is who Kid Cudi is, right? So now that you guys got an idea of who he is with the music, let's get into the testimony. So anyway, and he also came out with, you know, this fucking shit right here. This is what, 15 years ago? Okay. Now I think you guys know who the fuck I'm talking about, okay? So Kid Cudi, right? Basically, because back in the and the reason why I'm showing you guys this music is because 15 years ago, Kid Cudi was fucking a very hot artist, right? Very popular. So Diddy wanted to put Cassie alongside him to make music. So he actually introduced Cassie to Cudi. So Cudi and Cassie hung out for like the better part of a year, ended up becoming friends, and then they started dating by the end of 2011. One day, Cassie gets into an argument with Diddy, and she revealed this during her testimony, but Cudi didn't know this, so now I'm weaving both of them together for you. So so she gets into an argument with Diddy. She calls Cudi. Hey, Cudi, can you come pick me up? I need your help. He's like, okay, no problem. Where you at? He goes, he picks her up in his Porsche. He picks her up, and, you know, Cassie tells him, hey, just so you know, I got a fight with Diddy, and I told him your address. I told him where you live. He's like, what the fuck? So, you know, at this point, he's like, all right, I know a place we can go. So he takes her to the Marquis Hotel in Los Angeles. Takes her there. As they're at the hotel, right, Cassie's friend and his friend, a woman named Capricorn who works for Diddy, calls them. And when she calls them, Cudi puts the phone on speaker. And basically she calls them, and it seems like she's crying, saying, hey, look, Cudi, I'm at your house. Diddy and one of his associates is in your house right now. Okay? I didn't want to come, but they forced me here, and they're inside right now. So Cudi says, what the fuck? And he jumps in his car, and he runs back, drives to his house. He calls Diddy, hey, motherfucker, are you in my house? And Cudi's like, and Diddy basically said, all right, let's talk. So, and he's like, all right, well, I'm on my way. So Cudi goes to his house. Once he gets to his house, he sees that the surveillance cameras are kind of pointed down, right? And he walks in. When he walks in, he sees that his Christmas gifts, remember, this is late 2011, his Christmas gifts, which were like from Chanel or whatever, they were all opened. And then he notices that his dog is nowhere to be seen. So he looks and he looks for his dog, and he finds the dog is locked in a bathroom. No other damage to the house, whatever, right? He calls, he calls Diddy like, what the fuck? Like, yo, where you at? You know, you came to my house, what the fuck? He wanted to fight Diddy. Diddy's like, I'm on my way. So at that point, he starts to kind of reevaluate. All right, I don't know who he's with. I don't know if he has a weapon. Let me call the cops. So he calls the police. Police show up. He gives a police report, etc. Whatever. Fast forward, and so then after that, him and Cassie go to see her family in Connecticut. As you guys know, I've told you from both Cassie confirmed this in her testimony and Cassie's mom. Then Cudi also said, yeah, I went over there for Christmas, spent time with her family, etc. After they had their little Christmas trip, him and Cassie stopped talking. Now, the reason why, he didn't mention this on his testimony because he didn't know this, but Cassie did. She said after she spent time with Cudi at her house, Diddy reached back out to her, and she went to Arizona to go see him. She lied to her family and said that she actually went to California, but the reality is she went to Arizona to go see Diddy, and they rekindled things. This is early 2012 now. Once they rekindled things, Cassie stopped talking to Cudi, basically cut him off. So Cudi realizes that they're not talking anymore. It is what it is. January 9, 2012. He gets a phone call from his babysitter, his dog babysitter, saying, hey, your car's on fire. Remember that Porsche that I told you guys about before? It's on fucking fire, right? And he's like, what the fuck? So he's at his girlfriend's house, girlfriend's sister's house, like 40 minutes away. He comes driving back. As he's driving back, he tells his friend Chip, hey, I need you to go check out my house. My car's on fire or some shit. So his buddy Chip goes there and takes pictures of what's going on. Now, at this point, obviously, the police are called and they extinguish the fire, whatever. So by the time Cudi gets there on the scene, right, there's law enforcement there and his friends are there, the babysitter, all these people. So he inspects the car and he sees that there was a cut at the top of the Porsche. And there was a Molotov cocktail to the side of the car. And when he spoke with the police basically said, look, somebody cut a hole into the top of your car and threw a Molotov cocktail in there, and basically destroyed the vehicle. And in the photos that I saw, because they showed the photos in the exhibits, the car was basically like charred, right? Completely destroyed. And to him, he was like, okay, now shit's starting to get serious. I'm not even talking to Cassie anymore. My car just got fucking firebombed. So he calls Diddy and says, yo, let's have that meeting. Because mind you, Diddy wanted to talk to him before. When they were in Connecticut, Diddy had tried to contact them and say, yo, we need to sit down and talk. We need to sit down and talk. And Cudi said, no, I don't want to talk to you. You came to my house. You put my dog in the car. Fuck you. I don't want to talk to you. Then a couple weeks later, his car gets firebombed. So he decides to go and have a discussion with Diddy, right? So basically the meeting is organized for him to meet Diddy at this place called the Soho House in Los Angeles. And he said that his manager coordinated with Diddy's security, a guy named D-Rock, right? Which this is another name that was mentioned a bunch of times in the trial. And he shows up at the Soho House. And the Soho House is kind of like a hotel, guys, that hotel/social club that you have to have a membership for in LA. So he walks into the room, and in the room, there's like a full window, right? Or sorry, a full wall that's just glass that shows Beverly Hills. You can overlook it. And one of the things he said on testimony, which was funny, he said he walked in and he said Diddy was standing there, right, looking at the glass, you know, with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain, right? Which is fucking hilarious. They described it that way. But the long story short is they had a discussion, and basically they both figured out that Cassie was playing both of them, right? Cudi did not know that Cassie was still seeing Diddy, and vice versa. He had a suspicion, but he didn't know. Diddy had a suspicion that she was seeing him, but he didn't know for sure. So Diddy basically didn't confirm or deny anything, but, you know, basically they both kind of figured out that Cassie was playing both of them. And the thing that sticks out is Cudi, right? Him and Diddy made up, and it was cool, and they shook hands. And Cudi said that when he shook Diddy's hand, right, he asked him, "What about my car?" And Diddy responded, "I don't know anything about that." And basically he did not, you know, confirm or deny anything when it came to the car either. And obviously Cudi, you know, when asked on an examination, when he was questioned, you know, did you believe Diddy? And he said no. Now, what do I think about this testimony? I think, honestly, it's probably one of the most honest testimony, and I'll tell you guys why. As a rapper, you guys know that your career can really be impacted negatively by cooperating with the police. So for him to, you know, not only cooperate with the police, but testify in a trial, a federal trial, he's putting himself at great professional and personal risk doing so. So I think that, you know, I believe this testimony. I think it was pretty honest. Now, the other thing I want to let you guys know when it comes to this testimony, on cross-examination, Brian Steele came and cross-examined him. And one of the things that Brian asked him was like, "Hey, are you aware of the fact that they collected DNA from your car after the firebombing, the Molotov cocktail attack, and that female DNA was found?" And obviously the government objected right away, but it did bring up a little air like, okay, maybe someone else did throw the firebomb in. Now, does that mean that Diddy himself did it or he hired someone else? That obviously could be the situation as well. And then Cudi did also say that Diddy apologized to him a couple years later, but not for what. He just said, "Hey, man, sorry for all the stuff from before." But he didn't, like, specify why. Diddy was smart enough to not, like, you know, actually incriminate himself and say, "Hey, I was the one that burned your car, or I was the one that broke into your house." They still don't know. And the only reason he even knows it was Diddy is because this woman named Capricorn, a.k.a., like I said before, Cassie and his friend, said, "Oh, you know, I'm here at the house, and I saw, you know, I'm seeing them in the house." So that was Cudi's testimony summed up. The next witness was Mylah Morales. And Mylah Morales, guys, was Cassie's makeup artist. Let me see if I can find her Instagram profile for you guys real quick. All right, so here she is. This is Mylah Morales. Here's her Instagram. And you can see her. She's got this picture, oh my God, of Cassie here when she did her makeup and stuff like that. And she testified as well. This is her. She looked kind of crazy, I ain't gonna lie. Anyway, so Mylah Morales took the stand, and she gave, and the reason why they brought her in is because she told the story of back in 2010 that Prince had a private party that he was hosting where he was going to perform. Grammy weekend, 2010. So, and Cassie actually talked about this in her testimony as well, how they went to go see Prince perform in 2010. Now, in Cassie's testimony, and again, I'm weaving everything together for you guys. In Cassie's testimony, she said that she did not ask Diddy for permission to go to this event, but she went anyway with her best friend, Kerry Morgan, the blondie I showed you guys before. So when they go, Diddy was calling her and she didn't answer the phone. Diddy gets very angry when Cassie doesn't answer the phone. He'll either have his staff call her, he keeps calling her, or he goes looking for her. So in this case, she went to this event, and then as she's there, she sees Diddy's there, and she immediately left the venue. Now, from Cassie's testimony, it kind of ended there, but then Mylah Morales gives a bit more insight, and this is basically what happened. Mylah had been doing Cassie's makeup earlier that day, and she was staying with her at her hotel, in her suite. I guess Cassie went out. Mylah was asleep on the couch. She fell asleep on the couch. She said that she woke up to commotion, and as she woke up to the commotion, she saw Cassie come into the to the room, quickly followed by Diddy. As Diddy came in, he said, "Yo, where the fuck is that bitch?" And she was like, "I don't know." And then Cassie was in her bedroom. So Diddy follows her into the bedroom, and they close the door. She hears a bunch of arguing, screaming, whatever it may be. After, Diddy emerges from the room and leaves. Mylah goes into the room to talk to Cassie. And when she went in, she observed that she had a swollen eye, knots on her head, and a busted lip. So she's like, holy shit, what the fuck's going on? So she takes Cassie and she takes her to her house about 10 minutes up the road. Mylah did, right? This woman right here. She takes Cassie home, right? And as she takes Cassie home, she calls one of her friends who's a medical doctor. The medical doctor comes and looks at Cassie. And the doctor, you know, looks at her bruises, whatever it may be, renders some aid and tells her, look, you should probably go to the emergency room. Cassie refuses. Mylah says, hey, should we call the police? Cassie refuses. So they also even spoke to a lawyer, one of Mylah's friends who's a lawyer up in San Fran. Basically, though they made all these phone calls or whatever, nothing ended up happening. And Cassie didn't go to the police and she didn't report it. And then ever since that attack, they never talked about it again. Now, on Croft, the defense brought up that Mylah had done a bunch of interviews and she had made $1,000 from selling the rights from Kim Porter's photos. Kim Porter is Diddy's ex-wife, who, by the way, just so you guys know, the defense also talked about Kim Porter quite a bit. And in Cassie's testimony, Cassie admitted how she was jealous of Kim Porter. This woman right here, just to bring more... Here's Kim Porter. She is the mother of a couple of Diddy's children, to include, this one, this is his mom. So, this is Kim Porter here. And basically what, through the testimony from a couple of assistants as well, they admitted that the way Diddy treated Kim Porter way different than the other girls. And I think George Kaplan said this. He said that Cassie and Gina were just Diddy's girlfriends versus Kim Porter was something very special, someone's very special to him. And this kind of burned Cassie. The defense kind of harped in on this about how Cassie was very jealous of Kim Porter, how she got different energy and treatment from Diddy that Cassie never got. She ended up dying a couple of years ago. I think she died in 2018. And this is and Cassie actually showed up to the funeral for Kim Porter. So that's what ended up happening. So what Mylah, bringing it back to you guys, so you guys make sense of it. Mylah had some photos of Kim Porter from before that she had sold for $1,000, and the defense crossed her on that, the rights to it. And then they also attacked her on that she had done multiple interviews talking about this incident back in 2010 with the Grammys. And they asked her, did you get paid for any of these interviews? She said no. And basically that's what happened. So they brought her in for that. Defense tried to beat her up on her doing these interviews on the side. Next witness was a guy named Frederic Zemmour. This one's simple. Frederic Zemmour. He was basically a manager at one of the Beverly Hills hotels. I think it was called like the La Mage or some shit like that. Let me look it up for you guys real fast. Let me see here. L'Hermitage, maybe this is it. Bruh. Yeah, I think this is the hotel right here. Let me go back. Bro. You guys can see it's a very nice. Hold on. Put. Yeah. Okay. So so the hotel manager testified as well. Yeah, so it was L'Hermitage. Okay, Frederic Zemmour. Okay, so he came in, right? Basically, I'll summarize for you guys what he said. So they brought him because he talked about a database or a system that they use called Opera. And this system, Opera, basically tracks the reservations and the personal information of everyone that, reserves the room. And the reason why his testimony was important to the government was because the account was made in roughly 2006, and there are multiple names on the account, to include Frank Black, Frank White, Jackie Starr, which Jackie Starr was a nickname that Cassie used when she would organize these freak-offs, when she would book the hotels. And another one was Ryan Lopez, right? And over the years, the names on the reservation changed because, as you guys know, Diddy liked to use different names so people wouldn't know. One of his main monikers was Frank Black and Frank White. And also, the other reason, too, why this is important, when HSI searched his hotel, Vinda testified to this, Agent Vinda. When they searched his hotel in New York, he had medication. The drugs was in a medication called Frank Black. So he would use this alias to procure certain things, to include hotel reservations. So this guy testified to the different names being switched on the reservation account. Also, he talked about how when Diddy would, and again, they were using like documents to prove all this stuff. He also talked about when Diddy would reserve these rooms, that, you know, there'd often be candle wax, or he talked about one incident where there was candle wax everywhere and the room was completely destroyed. And then he gave another situation where KK, Christy Coram, that woman that I told you guys about before, that was the chief of staff, she had the Amex Black, that same Amex Black that George Kaplan talked about, and Andy and George, the other assistant. That Amex Black, they had $1,000 pretty much allotted there for any type of damages to the room, because they already knew it was almost like a given whenever we would do these freak-offs. So this hotel actually had that in their records, that they were authorized $1,000 for damages whenever he stayed, because of the candle situation before and the many different names. So he came in just to kind of testify about that. Defense did not cross-examine him because it was pretty airtight. All he did was come in, hey, these are the records when it comes to Diddy. These are records that we should have here. These are all of his stays. This is the other aliases that he used. Can't really, debunk that. It's all factual. They showed the records. He came basically to testify about that. Authenticate those records. That's why he came in. And then the last witness that they played, right, that they showed, was a guy named Joshua Croft. And Joshua Croft's job, he is a special agent with HSI thing out of New York. He is what's called a CFA, or Certified Forensic Agent. So his job was to extract data from 3 laptops that Cassie provided to the government. As you guys know, the freak-off videos that Cassie was so terrified about actually came from Cassie. They didn't come from Diddy. And this is something also that the defense attacked Cassie on. And with these... With the CFA, he described how he was able to extract the data using 2 databases called TX1 and what was the other one? Digital Collector. These are the software that the agent used. And then he would extract the data from these laptops, and then he'd put them into something called an action report. And the action report made it where it would be easier for someone to analyze the information. So basically, Agent Quinn, the case agent from New York, met up with Cassie, got a consent to search form and the 3 laptops. He gave the laptops to this guy, Joshua Croft, who is the forensic agent out of New York. He extracted the stuff, and then while going through one of the laptops, he found that there was 2 different IDs on it. One said Guest, and the other one said Frank Black. Upon finding this, he notified the agent, Quinn, hey, bro, just so you know, this Frank Black is here. I don't know who that is, whatever. So obviously the case agent, knowing that Frank Black is one of Diddy's aliases, he goes and gets a search warrant. He gets a search warrant, and then they're able to search it, and that's where a lot of this digital evidence came from. Because for you guys to kind of understand, since the freak-offs are a central part of this video, of this case, they showed some of the freak-off images in trial. Now, the public and the press did not get to see it. Only the jury was able to see the images from the still images, not the video. They took still images from the videos that were extracted from these laptops. So that is why this agent came in to testify, because he had to authenticate the laptops from which that evidence that the government used was extracted from. Does that make sense, guys? So oftentimes when you get records, or you get evidence that was taken from a scene or whatever, you have to bring in the agent, or you have to bring in the individual to authenticate that evidence. Does that make sense? This is why they brought in Gerard Gannon from HSI Miami to authenticate the AR-15s and the baby oil. This is why they had to bring in Special Agent Binda to authenticate the baby oil that they found in the cache and everything else from the hotel. This is why they had to bring in, Seymour from the La Hermitage, Beverly Hills, to authenticate those records. And that's why they had to bring in this guy, Joshua Croft from HSI, because he was the CFA that extracted the data. Now, I do think it's important for you guys to know that on Cross, they didn't really have much for him, because his job wasn't to actually go through the data. His job was to extract the data from the devices, and then he gave it back to Sean Quinn and his people, and then they analyzed the data. Okay? So, guys, that is a complete summary of the Diddy trial over the past 2 weeks. Give me ones if that makes sense for all of you guys. You guys now officially are completely up. If you watch the whole broadcast so far, and you've been watching me go from 1 to all the way 16, you guys officially know more about the Diddy case than 99% of Americans. And I went through each witness, their testimony, and summarized it for you guys. Give me ones if that all makes sense. And I'm going to go ahead and answer questions now on that. Then we're going to transition to the Zionist stuff.